All right, cell phones turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I like the setup. This doesn't wiggle as much. It's not as wiggly. My feet are popping up and down 100 miles an hour and you can't even tell.
You're very crisp too. Your camera's really good.
Good. That's what I was shooting for. Yeah. Thank you. Good. We're trying to do this in high def this time because we want to make some good sound bites out of it and get a good recording from it. The recording, unfortunately, we're at the whim of Zoom. So Zoom's going to do the recording for us. We'll see what happens. By the way, George, what number is my mic on? Is it 3 or 4 o'clock? Just so we know.
How high is it?
Yeah, how high is it?
Right now it's about 80%. So
Okay, good to know.
about 3.5.
All right. And yours is off? Okay. How much is the summit? Have them just go to the link. Send them to sponsorshipsummits.com. Say the code Happy New Year gives 20% off. 2 minutes to go and people are saying, how much does it cost? All right. Thanks, Dad. That's an interesting cup I chose. Damn, there's a bunch of people popping on. Holy crap. Will or Maddie and the baby still here? Or they went to their house, mom's house? As long as she's not walking upstairs, she's fine. Yeah, it's all good. And it's being recorded.
Happy New Year, Alex.
Happy New Year to yourself. Thank you. Did everybody get the schedule? I sent the schedule this morning through the Google invite calendar thing. I don't know if I did it right.
Yes, I received it.
Did you admit? Everybody's in?
Well, not everybody's in.
All right, get ready. All right, welcome everybody to the 2024 Motorsports Sponsorship Summit. Today's going to be a good day. The purpose of the day today is to educate young and new racers on the business of sponsorships, and then also to help marketing directors who are curious about motorsport sponsorships learn more effective ways of implementing some marketing practices. So by the end of the day, I think both racers and marketing directors will walk away with a boatload of information. I learn something every time I do one of these summits. But real quick, before we start, I have to apologize to like 8 people. I have several new members who were reaching out to me yesterday to schedule their one-on-one calls, one-on-one Zoom calls, and I did not reply. I was busy setting this up. So Heather, Peter, Jillian, Laura, Cheryl, Aaron, Gary, Jay, and Dustin, I promise after today, I will get a hold of you and we'll set up those one-on-one calls. So today's sponsorship summit is about sponsorship, and sponsorship is a tactic of marketing. And the purpose of marketing is to increase sales. So sponsorships should increase sales. But the way to increase sales is by having a relationship with a customer. Marketing is to form a relationship with customers so the customer feels an affinity with the brand. But the thing is, running ads and placing TV commercials, that's not really marketing. That's annoying. You need to be out in the field to market. You need to shake the hands of customers. You need to look in their eyes. You need to ask them questions. You need to answer questions. Marketing is one-on-one engagement, and that's what sponsorships can do. Marketing directors who sit behind 4 walls all day long, behind a desk, they're not really marketing. Marketing is going out into the field and meeting your customers and getting to know them. But if you can't be everywhere all at once, you can't be at all the different events, you need ambassadors. And that's what sponsorship is. Sponsorship is the placement of brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors are your sponsored riders, your team athletes who represent a company or a brand in the field where the company can't go. They don't have the resources. And that's why sponsorships make sense. And today we're going to learn how to become a brand ambassador and how to utilize brand ambassadors. And we're going to talk about why brands sponsor and what they look for. So let's cue up Sarah Henning and Eric Siebold from ITW Permatext. Eric is with Permatext. Sarah runs marketing for Fast Orange and Spray 9. Hi. Everybody,
Hi.
can you hear me? Welcome and thank you for coming. Thanks everybody for joining on a Saturday morning. I mean, seriously, it's, to take off on a Saturday, we have 100 people on the call right now. This is amazing. Thank you, everybody. Eric, you and I have done this many times before. We've talked about why brands sponsor and what they look for. Before we jump into it, I want to explain something real quick. All right. We got to. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I can hear that. I can hear that, and it's going to be on. So sponsorship. Let me back up for a second. Sponsorship is not about exposure. That was 5-10 years ago. You could sell exposure and companies would be happy. But today, different companies need different things. Retailers want foot traffic into their stores. Service companies want lead generation. They want to explain their hours and their locations. Beverage companies and food companies, they want sampling. Manufacturers want to win, endemic brands want to win. Manufacturers want you to try out their products. Tool companies want you to sample their tools. And endemic brands, those are the brands that are in motorsports or in the auto industry, they usually want functionality. And sometimes when they come out with a new product, they want awareness. So we have an endemic brand, a couple endemic brands on today, and that's Permatext and Fast Orange and Spray 9. So let's queue up once again, Sarah and Eric. And I'm going to jump right into it. Eric, why does ITW Permatext sponsor?
So you hit on a couple of them already, so I'll just validate what you said. In general, to drive retail traffic to our stores to buy our products, and when I say to our stores, I mean basically what we would call the big four: Napa, AutoZone, O'Reilly, and Advance Auto. So those are going to be our primary retail channels, and anything we can do to drive customers into those stores to purchase our products is a big piece of it. Awareness of new products. If you're in the automotive space, you're generally probably aware of Permatext or have used the products. So it's the new products that we need awareness of. And then again, the functional demonstration. So using the products at the track or behind the scenes in the shop and showing others how those are used is something that's really important for us.
How do you differentiate between all your different brands? ITW Group has Slime, Rain-X, Gum Out, Fix-A-Flat, Black Magic, Fast Orange, Spray 9, Permatext, others. I don't remember them all. But how do you know what brand to put with what brand ambassador or sponsorship and how to market that?
So every brand has its own marketing manager, essentially, pretty much. Some overlap a little, like Sarah is both Fast Orange and Spray 9, but those are both cleaners. One's a hand cleaner, one's a degreaser. But we trust each one of our marketing managers to run their own business as if it were their own business. So going to the top of the ladder at ITW won't necessarily get you the sponsorship, because the marketing manager knows their brand better than anyone and is trusted to make those decisions.
That's a good point. Well, let's go to Sarah then. So Eric, your Permatext. Permatext is obviously a functional brand that racers use. My mom is not going to go out and buy Permatext, but Sarah, Fast Orange and Spray 9, one's a hand cleaner, one's a antiseptic and a regular cleaner. That's a consumer product, so that would be marketed slightly differently.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say with these kinds of brands, they're a lot less technical than the products you would use for Permatext. And when we're talking about sponsorship and growing brand awareness, that's really a key focus for Fast Orange and Spray 9, and really driving trial in the space. I would
Trial.
say having people test the product, use them, and actually see the results from using our products on their cars, on their hands when they're working in the shop and getting dirty. That's really the key for those kinds of products.
When you say trials, does that mean sampling?
Sampling is huge, especially like Eric had mentioned on new products. So for Fast Orange, we kind of have our workhorse of a product, our regular pumice cleaner. But in the past year, we've released a couple of new items like a premium base with walnut or antibacterial. So driving people to try those new products that we've released and grow the brand that way is really key.
And then what have been some effective ways that some of your sponsored athletes or teams or even properties have been able to give out samples and market and create that awareness? What are some good examples for racers on the call who are trying to do the same for some of the brands that they're looking to impress?
I would say for Fast Orange, with a driver we already sponsor along with Permatex, he uses the products in videos, and content is really key for us when it comes to that. I think relationships with athletes nowadays is a lot more than just having a sticker on a car or being involved in that way, but actually providing content or use that the brands can use as well, showing how effective and how well their products work that they can take and post on their social media and create kind of an ecosystem within their deliverables and their teams.
That makes sense. The content is one component. Eric, you and I have talked many times about what you need from racers and brand ambassadors, your sponsored athletes. Content is one of many things. B2B relationships, you said, sometimes hospitality. What are some really good examples of what teams can do to represent Permatex?
So certainly, like Sarah brings up a good point. There's almost two kinds of sampling these days, right? Traditional sampling was always just like at the track, in the pits, handing out the trial size of products, and we still do that for sure. And that's still important to us. But there's this other sort of, I don't know, I'm coining a new phrase here, but this digital sampling thing where you can't get the physical product in everyone's hand, but you can demonstrate it for them online and digitally. So that's something I would also kind of consider in a way, a form of sampling. The people can't touch it and feel it at that point, but they're still getting the message and seeing it. But certainly being at the track, handing things out, visiting stores for us in certain areas, and handing out samples at stores. Like if you have a race in a certain city that weekend and you have the opportunity to visit an O'Reilly or an Advanced store with your car and show the car out front, that helps that store out, but you can also sample our products there. So that's a unique thing that some of our partners have done in the past.
So what do you look for when you're selecting among the different riders and racers who say that they can represent you and, oh, I'm going to give out samples, I'm going to go to events for you, I'm going to give you digital content? How do you make that selection among, I know you and I've talked and you said, I think you get 20, or let me ask you, how many decks do you get a month? Decks or proposals?
Yeah, it's tough to say per month, but I mean, I would say it probably averages at one a day, right? Business day,
okay.
Probably like one a business day. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that I get, like 20 a month.
20 a month. Then how do you pick among those 20 a month?
It's interesting. This is something I learned recently. Decks are important, but I've noticed that a clickable video link these days, like to a sizzle reel or something, is more apt to get my attention. I am more apt to click on a 2-minute YouTube highlight reel that shows someone at the track interacting with fans and racing or doing whatever. I'm more apt to click on that than I am to spend a lot of time in the deck on an initial thing, right? But if you want to, so if you want to capture my attention, that's something that works. And then the deck is kind of like when we're having a conversation. We're having a conversation, you can walk me through your deck, we're already there, but just emailing a deck is probably not going to get much attention from me.
That's interesting that you say that, because next session is going to be on networking, and the one after that's going to be on DEX proposals and proof of performance reports. And one of the things that we always say is you don't have to have a physical printed deck. The deck can be a link, it can be a video, it can be a website, it can be something that shows what you can do for a sponsor, instead of just a standard traditional 8 to 10 page, a bunch of hero cards all put together into a bound form that shows, put your logo here, it costs X, put your logo there, it costs Y. I think the more effective decks are the ones that attract attention, and that video link that you said, that seems to be the way that the better racers are doing it nowadays. Sarah, what have been some great examples of brands, or not brands, of racers who have approached you with, let's say, a video link or a deck, or they wanted to have a sponsorship and you were impressed by them? And then give me an example of something that turned you off, that like, oh, you looked at it and you're like, oh no, this person will never make it through.
Yeah, so I actually haven't received too many decks yet because I've only been in my position for about 6 months. But a couple of things that have definitely stood out is handwritten letters, or mailed letters to the facility. We actually have notes that we've received from customers or drivers talking about how much they love our product already and how much they love to use it, and talking about their experience with the product and the brand. I think that really draws people in and creates that connection between the driver, the athlete, and the brand itself. I think what's off-putting is just kind of cold emailing a link or sending a deck, just asking for money with no connection to the brand, or no story behind what you're looking for or why you want to be involved with Fast Orange or Spray 9. Because like you said, all of these brands have personalities, and we're looking for personalities that can connect with our brands too. So things like Fast Orange might not be the same as one of our sister companies like Slime. That could be a totally different racer. So I think coming in with the idea that you've used this product before and you truly love it, that really connects with people in the marketing department.
It's Joe at Slimo says that as well. If you use my product, there's a much better chance of getting sponsored. Do you two work with your other brands? Do all the brands within ITW Group have co-sponsorships of any athletes?
So we have in the past. I don't think we have a lot of kind of multi-brand platforms going on right now, but we have worked with, since Slime was brought up a couple of times a minute ago, we've worked with Slime in the past. Gum Out, not for the past couple of years, but prior to the past couple of years, we worked with them kind of combined with Ryan Turk and Chris Forsberg in Formula Drift with those racers. We worked combined with Gum Out and Black Magic with those racers. But very often, like I mentioned, there's everyone's kind of different in terms of which brand and what racer. So what we've been focused more on recently is not necessarily the racer itself, but connecting in sort of an ecosystem to the audience. So, and what I mean by that is Permatex is working very heavily with a Formula Drift team, right? Because that's that functional demonstration of the brand. But we don't really do anything with the series Formula Drift. But Sarah, on the other hand, has started a program where she's working with the series Formula Drift and not a particular team. So in that case, the sponsorships somewhat overlap because we're both hitting the Formula Drift audience, but we're coming at a different way, a different direction. And by the way, one of the reasons we've chosen that, if people are wondering, boy, why drift? It's a much younger demographic. It tends to be, say, they're they're like 18 to 34 is kind of the demographic that really gets hit there. And Permatex in general has had an older demographic, so we're trying to move the brand a little younger. And then the drift people, and by people I mean fans, the drift fans, if you ever go to a race, they're really wrenching on their own cars, they're really working on their own vehicles, they're getting their own hands dirty. At something like NASCAR, there's only a small percentage of the audience that is actually doing that stuff. They're there, but they're amongst a whole kind of almost mass market audience. The drift is a really tight community, and so that's why we've chosen that.
That actually makes a lot of sense. In some series or with some racers, I guess you're trying to sell to the racers and the mechanics and the teams themselves because they use the product. In other series and for other products, you're trying to sell to their fans, the consumers who might actually buy those products. If I'm a racer on the call now and I'm in that 18 to 34 demographic you mentioned, and I'm in, let's say, a different series, not drifting, but I think I'm a good fit for one of ITW's brands, what's the best way for me to approach the company to, show my eligibility for sponsorship?
So Sarah mentioned something unique a minute ago, and where she said direct mail, which is hilarious because it sounds so old-fashioned and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I've found that when I receive a letter in the mail at work, I open it up and I tend to read it. Whereas it's very easy for me to say never open an email.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I got one last week, not from a racer, but from an Instagram influencer who works on or who has a Mustang, and they sent me stickers with their Instagram handle and suggested that they could do some things for us, but it was a written letter with stickers in it and stuff. So it was interesting. It was unique and different. So it stood out. I would also say another place people reach out to me often where I'm more liable to respond is that when they connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message. That quite often. And that just tells me in general that they understand the idea that this is a business and that they're in the business of racing, and that it's a little bit of a different level than just a cold email.
It's funny you say that because that was one of my sponsorship secrets is I would always handwrite letters and mail them. But I've been doing that for a long time, and it's finally come full circle. So I don't know if I can say this, and I hope you don't get mad at me for saying it, but when you and I were talking a few days ago, you were mentioning this new initiative. Is that something that we can talk about today?
Yeah, I can't announce a ton, but I would say to everyone on the call just to, if you want to follow Permatex USA on Instagram or something, or on Facebook, you'll see this being announced in the next couple of weeks. We're going after sponsorship a little differently this year. We're actually going to, we designated a certain amount of funds to select, looks like it's going to be 4 racers for I can't announce the size yet, but a decent, I'll say decent, subjective,
No, it's decent. It's decent. It sure is. It'll help.
Plus product. And it's going to be driven by kind of the next couple of months, say over the next 8 weeks, posting content of you in the shop, getting your cars ready for the upcoming seasons. And a lot of times content is lacking this time of year. But a lot of the activity with our products, the behind the scenes in the shop, is going on. So we want to capture some of that. So we're calling it Team Permatex, and you would have a chance to compete for 4 cash sponsorships for next year. And that would be for 2024, and then you would be part of Team Permatex and featured on our website and featured right along some of our higher profile sponsored programs as well, but as an amateur racer.
Well, thanks for letting us announce it first on the sponsorship summit, because we got a couple week head start. Everybody on the call, if you didn't hear him,
That's right.
if you just logged in, and we see several people were just admitted, Permatex is having a Team Permatex contest where 4 lucky new racers, not ones that they currently sponsor, will become sponsored with cash and product by providing the best content, and whatever the other objectives are. You go to Team Permatex, go to the website, and it'll tell you what to do, but you get a head start here. So hopefully that'll lead to something. Hopefully someone on this call will become one of those new sponsored athletes. That would be really cool. So
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be
another
awesome.
thing, so is the Team Permatex, is that based around a new product launch by chance? Because I know a lot of times your spends are increased around product launches as opposed to just regular sponsorships for products that have been around for 50 years.
It's, that's a good question. And that is normally the case. That's normally where we invest a lot of our funds. But honestly, this is a little different. We recognize the amount of support that we get from the racing community and their products. And this is a way to do 2 things, really. One, for us to give back and support those people who are constantly supporting us by using our products. But also to get in on the ground floor with some up and coming racers. It's easy to just look at a race series, grab the biggest name and go after them and try to sponsor that person. But it's more fun to go along the journey with a young racer as they grow and as they develop, and that creates loyalty between us and them. So it's about building longer term relationships. Of course, every year we have new products, and those are the focus for the year, but this isn't necessarily focused only on new products.
Right on. And Sarah, what initiatives do you have with Spray 9 and Fast Orange? Anything new this year coming up?
A couple of new product launches we're hoping to get out there. Formula Drift is huge for us this year, and we're going to use that as an opportunity to really drive people and the awareness we've been talking about, not only of the brand, but of new products that we've launched into the big 4 retailers that Eric mentioned: AutoZone, O'Reilly, Napa, and Advanced. We're working on a couple of new and different products, especially in the hand care or Fast Orange area of products. I mentioned a couple of different types of hand cleaners, like antibacterial and premium, but we're kind of expanding into different subsets, like a hand repair lotion similar to an O'Keefe's, and a body wash. We also have a laundry detergent, so a couple of different expansions into personal care with Fast Orange. And then with Spray 9, we're really just trying to grow awareness. It's a great product, and we've heard from a ton of people that once they try Spray 9, they love it. So it's really driving people to that trial of Spray 9 this year and getting them to go to the store and test the product.
Excellent. Excellent. New product launches is often where a lot of companies do have increased budgets for marketing, and sponsorship, in my opinion, is one of the most effective forms of marketing, because it does allow a brand to be one-on-one with consumers. It's not just about running ads and placing commercials. It's about engaging and sampling and explaining the product in person and giving them a trial and letting them use it to see if they like it. Sarah,
Yeah.
are there any last words of advice that you have for athletes on the call who might want to get sponsored by any of the ITW brands? Just something that we didn't cover that you think might be good information?
I would say when you're reaching out to brands, whether it's, through mail, through email, through LinkedIn, or even coming to see us at trade shows, coming and talking to us just like normal, we really want to get to know you and your personality and see how we interact with each other. I think that's a key part of a partnership with a brand. It's a lot more than just cash or product. It's really going to be able to build that relationship and grow with each other. So coming as authentic versions of yourself when you meet us in any way is the most important.
That makes a lot of sense. Be authentic, be real. Eric, I was going to ask you the same question, last tips and tricks and advice. But before that, you had mentioned about Racers helping you with your brand's objectives. How does somebody who maybe doesn't know what your objectives are learn what they are? You know, I want to reach out to you because I'm at all the races. And I think I'm doing a really good job, but how do I know what your objectives are that year for the brand?
So that's a great question, and it ties into the new products piece I think that we were talking about. It's actually probably a little easier than you think. I would say that across the board, any manufacturer or consumer products company, if you visit their website, you're probably going to be confronted almost immediately with the products that they are most interested in pushing. So the banner ads that scroll across the top of our website are going to be the products that are either new products of ours or we have a focused initiative around. Usually on a lot of websites too, you will see a tab that says like news. If you click on that, very often you'll find the most recent press releases from companies, and those will tell you what their biggest initiatives are. So I think that if it doesn't even, you can make, as a racer, you can make 10 minutes of research look like you spent hours of research just by going to the website, hitting up the Instagram account, seeing what the company's been posting about recently, and then you'll know quickly what their objectives are.
Yeah, that's really good. I agree with that. And also trade shows, I think.
Yes.
Don't most companies display their latest products at trade shows?
Definitely.
Absolutely. So that's a good way to, and I would say that's a miss I see at PRI. Like a lot of people here probably attend PRI. And when we're working at our booth at PRI, people essentially come into the booth, try to find who the marketing director is so they can hand their deck off. What they don't do is stop, pause for a second, look around the booth, figure out what our objectives are, and then ask us, hey, I haven't seen this product before. What's this about? And then introduce your deck. You know, it's just a little bit of a nuanced way to do it that gets our attention.
Hey, since you went there, trade shows, PRI, SEMA, do you take decks home from trade shows?
I do. And there's a lot of noise in there because, a lot of people are handing them out, but I do, we certainly don't just throw them out. We take them and we'll flip through. I wish there was a real defined system I could tell you about ones that catch my attention more than others.
Yeah.
But there's not any one thing.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about decks and proposals and pop reports and a couple more sessions. So thank you very much, both of you, Sarah and Eric. Thank you for taking the time on a Saturday to be with all of us and all the racers that are on the call. This was awesome. What a great session. Thank you very much. And good luck with Team Permatex. I think that's a really cool initiative. Really cool.
Thank you. Everyone pay attention. You'll see the announcement soon.
Now talking about trade shows. Talking about trade shows, we're going to go to networking session now about finding, signing, and renewing sponsors. And this is a key one because the hardest part about sponsorship is first meeting that sponsor and then retaining the sponsor, keeping the sponsor. Once you meet a sponsor, it's not that hard to get sponsored. If you're willing to accept product, or if you're willing to accept something far less like content, maybe not money the first year, but you can form relationships with brands quite easily. It's just, how do you keep that relationship paying for 16 years, like Antron Brown and Toyota? We'll talk about that later when Antron's on. So let's cue up Paul Dolshaw and Catherine Reinhardt to talk about finding, signing, and renewing sponsors. Hey, Catherine. Catherine's with Hemmings and Paul's with Toyota. Paul and I spent many sponsorship summits at NHRA together. He and Andre Jackson and I up in Sonoma, really fun summits, I have to say. And that's a great networking session. Great way to network. Catherine, you were saying something when we were talking last week that just really lit it up for me, that networking is not just about meeting people, but it's about forming alliances. Can you elaborate on that? Because I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I've been in this industry for a very long time, and knowing that I was here to stay, I really wanted to formulate a lot of people that would be in my corner if I ever needed them. And vice versa. And I don't know about you guys. How many of you guys actually watch the show like Survivor or Big Brother? Yeah, right. These are game shows that people play, but really the strategy isn't about just winning. And I formulate that to what you guys are doing. It's not just about winning the race. There's also strategy that happens, and it's formulating these really great relationships with different companies. Maybe it's with other racers, maybe it's with suppliers, and that becomes your alliance of people that you're going to rely on should you need an introduction, should you need someone to vouch for you, should you need somebody to say, I know someone over there, and vice versa. And I've really relied on my alliances in my career in the automotive aftermarket, because if I ever needed a job or an introduction, I had these people I could depend on to utilize when I needed them. And that's kind of where the alliance factor came in.
So it's not just about meeting somebody and getting a deck or proposal to that person, but it's about getting to know that person and becoming friends with them and forming a relationship. Because yep, you can only have alliances with friends. I'm assuming you don't have alliances with people you don't know.
And that's the truth. There's people that are going to switch jobs. Alex, you've had a couple of jobs in your life. You're not going to be at the same job forever, but maybe when you leave one, you go to another one. It's like, wait, I had a really great relationship with so-and-so, and I'm going to bring them over because that was a great sponsor I had, and I want to continue the relationship. Those are the kinds of synergies that happen organically because you really truly appreciate those relationships you've built. And I'll be honest, I would rather pick sponsored drivers that I have a great relationship with, that I know are going to deliver time and time again, and I'll bring them with me to the next job or the next role that I have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In fact, probably, I don't know, 5 to 7 presidents and CEOs who I know now, I've gotten to know over the past 20 years, and they started out at a much lower role in their company and just worked their way up. So it's not just always about meeting the people at the top of a company, but it's about meeting people in a company who are smart and ambitious and work hard, because they will work their way up one day. Even that marketing director today might be the CEO tomorrow. You never know. Paul, how about you? Forming alliances with Toyota. You and I have been to many sponsorship summits up in Sonoma for NHRA. What a great place. They put us together, the sponsor summits. That's a great way to form alliances. What are some other good ways to meet people?
Yeah, I think those are all good ones. It's going to vary for a company like ours where, trade shows, SEMA, we're always at SEMA, seems like, but we don't really go to PRI. We work with other groups that are PRI, but we're at track a lot. So with the various series that we sponsor and support, so that's always there. But I agree that it's more of a relationship piece that I was listening to the prior group too, and the random deck that comes flying in, unless your timing is extremely perfect, like it has to be on the dot, that what you're presenting is exactly what we're looking for at the time, we'll peruse, but probably not going to act. Depends, again, unless your timing is like absolutely perfect, but we have a pretty mature program. And where I have always liked some of the drivers and young talent that have been out there is they'll make an introduction. It's not a deck right away. It's a, hey, here's what I do. Would love to be a part of the Toyota family, the Toyota racing family, and the check-ins through time. It might be a growing of that relationship over a year or two or more. But those checkbacks, just to say, hey, just letting you know, I've had this going on. I've performed at this level. I'm moving to this different class within a series or something like that, goes to help foster those relationships and build them over time. So those I find have been more valuable for probably a lot of racers than just the slamming a deck in an email.
Yeah, no, that's true. So how many decks would you say you get? And then even at SEMA, I saw you at SEMA, we were hanging out a little bit. How many decks at a trade show like SEMA do you get? And I'm asking just to put it in perspective for the racers on the call who unfortunately think that they're the only person sending a company a deck. There's a lot of competition.
Yeah, we'll probably get between emails and other kind of approaches just through my channel with the Toyota Racing out of Plano, Texas. We'll probably get 15 to 20 a month, I would think, for various things. And then our competition arm, TRD USA, obviously, they get inundated with a lot of different people who think they're the next, Kyle Busch or Dale Earnhardt. So there's a lot, and a lot of it is from what catches our eye, especially on the TRD side, is results, how you handle yourself from a personality perspective, and building of a relationship standard of performance, but winning, right? Winning championships at the series you're in and at the level you're in is key. We're really that is what drives attention when it comes to the fan base. We looked at our history in NASCAR, right? And you look through time, and we had growth in consumer sentiment and consideration of our product and all those things over time. But it's not really until you start throwing top tier championships in, like the NASCAR Cup Series championships, that you see the big ticks in and increase in that consideration. So performance is key. So really try to focus on that, perfect your craft, and other things will come. Like those, when you perfect your craft, then the relationships will come to you instead of the other way around.
So real quick, then I'm going to go to Catherine and ask her about how appropriate it is to hand a deck out at SEMA. But real quick, Paul, you're in Toyota Racing. Toyota's the largest car company in the world. You probably have a lot of different marketing directors. How does a racer on this call know which marketing director to approach? I'm assuming there's many more marketing directors than just in the racing side.
Yes, if it's racing, though, it's my team, again, or TRD. But yeah, we have groups that manage individual vehicle launch and marketing for individual series. We have another team that is it's within our group that manages bass fishing and Vail Resorts and all the other engagement activities that go on, overlanding and various programs like that. So it is concentrated within our marketing team, but yeah, for racing and a motorsports activity, it should come to my team.
Okay. Do the other marketing directors sponsor any kind of athletes or racers? I know racing is in your purvey, but could a racer perhaps be sponsored by a local dealer, and that leads to a sponsorship with Toyota Corporate?
There is some dealer groups that are big into participation. There's a couple around that really have a big presence in off-road. So that's great. Those can combine at times when all of our interests are rolling in the same direction, and there's a focus from our side on that. Really, for us, it's trying to talk about TRD from a performance brand standpoint, and now GR from a performance brand variant. TRD is the body on frame, and GR is our sports car and performance sedan kind of pathway. So it does come together that way at times, but again, we're trying to maneuver around. There's been a lot of probably chatter in the off-road world about us trying to get back into off-road, which I would love to, but we're not in a position with everything we're doing from the other initiatives within the company, right? I don't have an endless bucket of money to come pull it from, because we'd be in a lot more places. But right now, Beyond Zero is one of our programs that we have. It's electrification of our product line. And obviously EV is a big push in the company. So it's absorbing a lot of our resources at this point, from building battery plants in North Carolina and all those other elements. So trying to reallocate funding has been kind of our priority over the last couple seasons. We'll be out of King of Hammers, and we're going to do a contingency program for King of Hammers for any running Toyota powered stuff. We thought it would be better to come support the racers that have been continually running our products, rather than go in the shop and build something to come out and beat up on them. So that was kind of we're walking back in from a different trajectory and a different angle into off-road, rather than coming full steam with a big trophy program and helicopters and all the fun stuff and going to Baja. So it's more of a groundswell piece than coming over the top and just spending all the money to win races.
And that's the way I think it should be. Grassroots racing needs to grow from the grassroots, from the ground up. It's not going to be one company coming in, sprinkling a ton of money to a series and hoping it trickles down. Every racer on this call needs to be better funded. And then that helps motorsports grow. If we can get every racer to make 5, 10, 20 times more than they're currently making, then they can go to more races, they can do more activations, they can represent better. And then motorsports grows from the grassroots up. So Catherine, let's go back. You're on the board of directors of SEMA. Is SEMA a good place to hand out decks and proposals and meet people?
Well, that's a tough question. Is it a good place to meet people? Absolutely. I've been going to the SEMA show for the last 20 years. I know I don't look it, but I will tell you, don't go into someone's booth and just ask marketing director and hand off a deck. That is 101. Do not do that. What I like to do, and I will tell you my secret. I was a racer when I started my career way back in the day. And I'm old school enough where we would actually have to fax in our sponsorship applications. I know some of you don't even know what a fax machine is. But and to this day, I still compete. I do an off-road series called the Rebel Rally. Google it. It's an amazing off-road rally to be a part of. But
we have quite a few teams in that program. So
yes, Paul, I know I compete against you. Don't remind me. But one of the things I love about going to SEMA is I do my research. Guys, go online, Google the people that you are looking to have a conversation with. Know what they look like. Go into the booth ready to have a conversation with them. And my big secret, and I still do this to this day, is when I meet someone new, I go up to them and I introduce myself and then I give them a compliment. I know this sounds really cliche, but just like say, I love your shoes, or, oh my gosh, like I love your glasses. I love what you guys have been doing. I saw on LinkedIn that you got, a new role. Congratulations. Whatever it is, personalize your approach. And all of a sudden you take any kind of defense of that person off the table. And now they truly want to know who you are and why you're there to conversate with them. Do your research, do your homework, know who you're talking to. Events and trade shows, specifically SEMA, is a great place to meet potential sponsorship companies. In fact, what you should be doing is telling them who you are and then following up. I loved, I think Eric said it before, a sizzle reel. If you were to come to me with a business card that had a QR code that went directly to a sizzle reel about who you are and what you're doing, I would love to see that. That is super easy. I can take that in my pocket. If you come to me with a big deck with binding and plastic and folders, I'm throwing that in the trash. I don't have the ability to take that home with me. And if it goes in the booth, I won't see that for 2 months. So just so you know, when we exhibit at the show, it takes probably 2 months for us to get our booth back and actually go through everything. So unless it's small and compact enough for me to take home with me, I'm probably not even going to look at it. So just know that information, know who you're talking to, do your research, and then have really good pointers as to why my sponsorship is going to benefit your program and your company. Come to the table in that booth with all those reasons up front.
And that sizzle reel is key because it not only shows what you can do, but it shows the sponsor what you're going to do for the sponsor when that sponsor sponsors you. When you're sponsored, they expect video, they expect content, they expect, good representation and the cleanliness, the classiness, how well it looks. That's all going to be part of what the image that you're portraying to the sponsors, what you're showing the sponsor, that's the image you're going to portray of them to your fans and followers. So I like that sizzle reel concept. I had a question, or not a question, but I have a comment on SEMA. So one thing that I usually do, and I don't know if it's still appropriate, maybe I'm sharing a secret here. Catherine, you can help me out on this one. But what I like to do is I like to actually meet marketing directors the day before the trade show. The trade show, the day of, and this is not just SEMA, but any trade show, they're busy, they're selling, they're marketing, they're trying to engage their potential customers. But the day before, when they're setting up the booth, wow, they're usually wide open. Or the day after, when they're tearing down the booth, and even at restaurants, local restaurants and bars and clubs, at PRI, everybody goes to Slippery Noodle on Thursday and Friday night. So great place to meet people. What about events and going to shows early? Is that still appropriate at SEMA?
I think it's still an option. I think that some people come in late and leave early, so that could be a little dicey. But listen, if I have to come by your booth 5 times to finally have a meeting with you in order to formulate a relationship and get a sponsorship, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely important to try every touch point you can possibly think of to find this person, short of stalking them, but do everything you can to get in front of them at some form or fashion. And SEMA is a great place to do it. PRI is a great place to do it. At your own events, if those sponsorship companies are there, go and chat them up there as well. I will say something a little controversial. Paul is definitely in the position where he's looking for championships. He's looking for winners. I've worked for a series of companies where I didn't really care if you were on the podium. And I say that hesitantly because we're really looking for people that are going to accentuate our brands. And that comes in those sizzle reels, that becomes in your social etiquette, that becomes in how you utilize the product and how you showcase it to your audience. And so, no, if you're not the best racer in the world and you're not hitting podiums every single weekend, that's okay too. I wouldn't discount you for that. But I'm definitely going to look for someone that knows how to utilize the product and show it to their audience. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that you don't have to win big national championships to be somebody that would be considered for a sponsorship. But going to SEMA, talking to people, going to your local car shows, racing events, definitely go before, during, and after. Hit every opportunity you can to have a conversation with those people.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing I also do is I'll go on LinkedIn and try to determine who might be going to a trade show and reach out to them and schedule the meeting in advance instead of just cold calling and popping in on them. Paul, let's go to you real quick. How do you feel about people just walking up to you at a trade show? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. SEMA, it seems like you're there and you're just constantly talking. So that's great. We have different run-ins with other sanctioning body leaders that are running around there too. So it's a great place to have that, especially in that, like you're talking about, when we're setting up everything. I'm not the one bolting everything together, so it's a little easier. We're just kind of milling around and just checking and rehearsing and doing those things. But so that's good timing. It's those times, like I said, at track, for us, most of the time is pretty laid back. It's pretty casual. A lot of the work's already gone in. You're there to kind of, again, maintain and foster the relationships you have with either the sanctioning body, the track leadership, the teams that we have participating at that event, the drivers, and then engaging with the fans. So that time is dedicated to those conversations and having those conversations. And again, I agree 100% with Catherine. Like, don't come waving the big bound book, but again, start a relationship, start a conversation. Just let us know who you are and what you're doing, and then maintain that a little bit. Figure out how to do that. So those very good options.
So real quick, let's go back to timing. Toyota is a Japanese company. You're probably on a different fiscal year than most American companies. What is your budget cycle, and when's the best time to approach you for sponsorship? Like, when are you making those decisions?
Yeah, we're April to March, so we're coming to the end of our fiscal cycle now. So obviously that bucket we're draining every last drop out of that bucket of funding right now. But yeah, if we're going to make some kind of a sponsor move from working with a group or a driver team, it's probably going to be a year to a year and a half before anything goes through, before we start working together and from a professional and a contractual standpoint. So it takes a little while. I envy some of the companies on here that have some nimbleness to them, but ours is definitely got a lot of lawyers and other people I've got to get through. So It takes us a little minute, but you know, if you think you're going to come in January or December for the next season, it's probably too tight because we're probably already allocated out.
So it's a good idea to start that relationship first, try to get to know you first, learn your objectives, and show how how the racer can satisfy those objectives. Then maybe you consider them a year or two out for sponsorship. Yeah,
some of the feedback about the research and finding out about a company and what their triggers are, you know, I don't want to sound like we're, you know, braggadocious or anything like that, but Toyota is a company that doesn't necessarily have a recognition or an awareness issue. But so how can you fit into that? Social is great. We're always looking at social. We measure it. We work with our drivers and our teams on a monthly basis from a reporting and a performance standpoint. So it is a big part of what we're looking at from an ROI and how to connect and communicate better with the fan base and the consumers that are out there. So it's I wouldn't say a growing, or it is been growing, and it is to a key part of what your conversation should be about. You know, we will explore what that content you create looks like, and does it fit our brand? Is it on target with what we feel like we are as a brand? And you know, those are key elements as well. So
I know car companies typically also have their major spend around new product launches. How can I determine what one of your new product launches might be if I think that, you know, I'm a good fit for Toyota? Is there any way to early learn that or find that out, or just ask direct?
You can do that exploration. If you go into Toyota.com, you can look at the vehicle lineups. There's upcoming vehicles that we show that are revealed but not in production yet. So you can kind of get an idea of what's out there with that. We have a lot of different model lines, so we don't race everything, but we have figured out ways of doing those. There's been a couple instances of where our vehicle marketing group has had a model that they really want to specifically highlight an attribute, and they'll go out and find a team or a driver to do a specific event, but it's very, very finite. Once that launch window is kind of through and the messaging is gathered that they want, then it's over, right? And they're moving on to the next thing. I don't like that approach. I don't feel that it's appropriate for us to have a team spool up and build a vehicle and compete for a season and then say we're done. I try to find areas and ways that we would have a longer relationship and be in something, and not just kind of launch, race, and abandon, if you will. But so different things happen, but we try to have a longer term focus with specific models that we're going to race in series for a while.
We'll talk about that in the second session with Antron and your colleague, Andre. Catherine, how about Hemmings? What's your budget cycle, and when are sponsorship decisions made?
Yeah, I think a lot of automotive aftermarket companies are really utilizing a calendar year. And so a lot of those decisions and a lot of those budget finalizations are usually done in the first weeks of December. And so if I were to backtrack that, that really means that the week after SEMA is when we finalize a lot of our decisions on who we're going to be sponsoring and what kind of funding we're going to provide. And so that really means those meetings at SEMA are really crucial. And those are really, at that time, you're solidifying the deal. You've already made those conversations. You've already had details about what you would provide as a sponsoree. So SEMA is kind of the finalization of it. But, you know, never say never. Are there slush funds? Are there still ways to get inside with a company? Absolutely. So don't let that crush your dreams of not being able to continue those conversations. One of the things I used to do when I raced was, and this might be taboo now, but I would actually pretend like I was already sponsored by those companies that I wanted to be sponsored by. And what I would do is I would actually take the product, I would use the product, and I would put the stickers on my vehicle, right? And so to me, I was already like sponsored in my head. And of course, I paid full pot for the product, or maybe I got a discount with a buddy of mine or whatever. But I would pretend like I was already sponsored. And so when I would finally have those conversations with those companies, it was like, well, look, here's a picture of my vehicle, and they'd go, wow, you already have stickers on the vehicle, you're already using the vehicle. Well, why don't we just give you an upgraded product, or why don't we give you a couple bucks so that you could go race at the next race? And that was kind of my entryway of getting in. And I was already proving myself that I'm using your product, I'm familiar with your product, I'm willing to advertise for you with nothing coming back to me, because that's how authentically I loved your product. And that seemed to be a really good way to get my foot in the door. So utilize that if you can, and utilize that as a way to open those conversations with those sponsors.
That is so funny. You say you've not faked having a sponsor, but with the energy drinks, half the time when you see an energy drink on someone's car, they're not really sponsored by that company.
Right.
They might be getting some free product, but that's not a real sponsorship. We only have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to ask you, then I'll go to Paul. Any last words of advice for racers on the call who are seeking sponsorship? How do you meet sponsors, and how do you attract their attention to potentially get sponsored? Last words of advice.
Yeah, like I said, do your research, know who you're talking to, know what the company's objectives are, and how you can help facilitate those with your audience. And again, you don't have to be on the podium every single weekend to get sponsorships. There's a lot of small companies out there that are looking for people like you guys to help get their brand in front of new audiences. And so if you can articulate that with a sizzle reel, with your social media following, with your ability to showcase the product in use on your vehicle with stickers and being a great brand ambassador, those are still opportunities for you to get in front of those companies and become a sponsoree for them. Never give up. Keep those conversations going. You may not get it this round, you may get it next round, or in 2 years. It took me years to get some of the sponsors that I have today. I do compete with Ford Performance in the Rebel Rally, and that didn't come overnight. That took years to get. And so just know, if you stay the course, keep connected with these people, show your value, those sponsorships will come true.
Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. Paul, how about you? Last words of advice.
I would echo a lot of that. And again, it's that determination and that hustle and sticking with it. You're going to hear no way more than you will hear yes. And that's part of it, right? It's no different than selling cars. If you want to sell 10 cars, you're going to have to talk to 100 people. So just stay with it, stay the course, work on your craft, and good things will come. The hustlers in life, I'll throw a reference, Jordan Anderson. He's a Chevrolet team now, but he has worked and hustled and scrounged to get to where he is on the NASCAR side. And that's the hustle that everybody pays attention to and everybody notices. So just keep digging. It's hard, but I agree with 100% of what Catherine said.
Well, that's cool. Thank you both. I learned a lot on this call, and especially I learned a new term, body on frame, for TRD. I haven't heard that before. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Old school trucks.
Hey, thanks for both of you for taking time off on a Saturday. We all appreciate it. We're now going to go over to the session, Deck's proposals and pop reports. Megan, my co-host, Megan should be up here. This is really important because I've always found that racers, especially new racers, amateur teams, they get the three confused, or at least they confuse decks and proposals, and they don't even know what a pop report is. So we're going to back up a little bit, and we're going to go over, this is like Sponsorship 101 Part 2. I'll start out by sort of explaining it, and then Megan's going to show you how to create. And this is going to be a very important session. Decks are used to attract attention. You want to start a relationship with a sponsor, you have to meet that sponsor, and you have to start that relationship, a conversation. You have to get to know them. They have to get to know you. You never send a proposal to someone who you really don't know, or they don't know you. It's like proposing marriage. You got to get engaged first so they know you, then you propose. A lot of decks that I see, most decks that I see, are actually disguised proposals, where they're asking for money or asking for a partnership, asking for a relationship, without first starting that relationship or starting that conversation. So as we heard from Eric, a deck could be a sizzle reel. I actually think sizzle reels are probably the best decks. deck can be printed. A deck can be a PDF file. A deck should be something that attracts attention and starts a conversation. It doesn't ask for money. It doesn't show all your deliverables of what you're going to do. That's in the proposal. The deck is something that is your fishing tool. It's really to attract that attention. And Megan's going to show you how to create decks in a minute. The proposal, on the other hand, that's now what you give a sponsor or give a company when you want to be sponsored, because they know you know them, you know their objectives. And I have a list of things that go in proposals because I can't remember this off the top of my head. But once you know a company and you know what they want, then you can create that proposal. And a proposal can be, well, a proposal is typically just a Word document with deliverables. And the end of the proposal is often a Schedule A or Schedule B or C that sometimes becomes a legal document because it's outlining what you're going to do. Things that go into a proposal are things like the scope of the deal, the nomenclature of the team, the entitlement rights, compensation, incentives, exclusivity in the product category, if so, appearances, signage, banners, wraps, uniforms. What are they going to look like? Where your sponsor? Where is it placed? Proposals demonstrate whether you have the ability to sell at a track or give away samples. Sometimes tracks and promoters or series sanctioning bodies, they have exclusives in certain product categories. You can't go to a Monster sponsored event and hand out Red Bulls. So you have to, that goes into your proposal. What are you able to do on behalf of the sponsor, and what can the sponsor do through you to the spectators and the teams at that event? The proposal will talk about paid for media broadcast. If you're sponsored by a company, they expect you to be an extension of their marketing arm. What are you going to do to market them? It's not just about racing and getting on the podium. That's the foundation of what you're doing. How are you going to market your team with your sponsor tagging along as that marketing, your brand ambassador? How are you representing that brand? The proposal talks about provision for social posts. How many are you going to do? What are they going to look like? What's the frequency? What platforms? They talk about tickets and hospitality. What's a sponsor going to get to take their VIPs, access to content, databases. You could potentially put valuation of assets, your tangible and intangible assets. Again, tangibles, we talk about this in the membership programs and in the book. Tangible assets are the physical assets. That's actually the logo on the car. It's the things you can touch and feel, the ads you're going to place, the posts you're going to make. Your intangible assets, those are priceless. That's reputation. That's integrity. It's the feel good part about sponsorships. Proposals also talk about other sponsors and what they're going to do to market you, because that's very important. Many sponsors will sponsor you because they want to meet your other sponsors. And you can put in a proposal that you're going to position somebody alongside someone else. I had a shop company that wanted to be positioned literally beside Toyota. It's one of the ways I got to know Andre Jackson, who you're going to see later, one of Paul's colleagues. I got to know Andre through the sponsorship of the Championship Off-Road Racing Series, and another sponsor wanted to be positioned in the pits right next to Toyota because they wanted to sell their products to Toyota OEM. So once you have that sponsorship, because the proposal worked and it landed a deal, the deck attracts attention, the proposal closes the deal. Now you're sponsored. Now, the first year of sponsorship is not that hard. As I've mentioned before, you can often get sponsored just by offering to give services for a season or an event, maybe a couple events, and this is in exchange for product or a small amount of cash, or just do it for free. Maybe you get content. But once you have that sponsorship, you want to keep it, because year one is not that important. Years 2 through 20, those are important. That's where the sponsorship grows. That's how it compounds. It's the longevity of sponsorships that makes them valuable, not the one-time sponsorship. You don't always want to look for a new sponsor every year. You want to renew that sponsor. And that only comes through the proof of performance reports. The POP reports are the most important reports you can generate to keep sponsors long-term. I'm going to repeat that. The proof of performance reports are your most important reports to create for long-term sponsorships. And your POP reports, you do them every race or every event, maybe even every time you do something and create visibility. You compile that into a larger document that at the end of the year, you can show your sponsors, here's what I did for you. You don't do it at the end of the year, do it after every time you do something, whether it's social posts, you go an appearance, you go to a race, you get on the podium. All of those activities go into your proof of performance report. And at the end of the year, the POP report is something not to show the marketing directors who you work with what you're doing, because they usually know, they're following you. The marketing director who you did the deal with, they know what you're doing and they're watching you. They like you. That's why they sponsored you. The POP report helps that marketing director sell it to their CEO or CFO or maybe their boss. So the proof of performance report is a document that you're going to give your sponsorship director that they can use to get a renewal for you. And that's why they're so important. So let's pull Megan up here. Megan's going to talk about how to create decks that attract attention, how to write proposals that sell, and then how to compile POP reports that keep them renewing. Megan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All righty. Thank you so much, Alex, and welcome everybody to the 2024 Sponsorship Summit. So I'm going to share my screen and give you guys real life examples of what the difference is between a deck proposal and a POP report, because that is probably one of the most asked questions that I get from racers. And so just a little background about myself really quick before we get started. I come from the drag racing world. I've been in the NHRA series my entire life, watching my dad race. And then I got the opportunity to start driving in 2016. I stepped away at 2020, but during that time, we won 2 world championships, a handful of regional championships. But most importantly, we secured funding for the team, which was the first time we really had since my dad in the past. He really couldn't get his own sponsorships as far as funding wise goes. He did get some like product only sponsorships, but not really monetary ones until, I want to say, I mean, I don't want this to sound, ego or bragging or anything, but until I came around, because I really focused on the marketing side and the social media side of how can we actually help these companies out, because this was in a time where social media was starting to become really big. We didn't really see that many other drag racers start using it other than just sharing their race results and how they did at the events. So I kind of took it in a different route and shared more of behind the scenes content and what are we doing to prepare for races? What can you see going on in the pits or at the shop, or how does a driver suit up? And so with that, we were able to make different content, and sponsors really like that. So if you were on the call in the beginning with Eric, where he was saying, now is the time to make the content, and they're doing that contest. So in the next session, we'll talk more about social media. But for now, we're going to be talking about the decks and proposals and POP reports. So on my screen right now is a pitch deck that I actually made for one of the attendees, the Glines Motorsports team. And so they were a team that I actually met through through Alex and the sponsorship summits, and they should be on today's class. But this was a deck that I had created for them, and they were pitching to the company Craig Swaps and Associates. And so I want you to notice that this deck, which was built inside of Canva, and I'll give you guys a quick tutorial of how to use Canva. But this deck was made specifically for this company. And one thing that I get from racers is they just want like a plain generic deck that they can go out and send to 50 companies at once, or get 50 copies printed and hand out at the SEMA and PRI shows. And like you just heard, that's not really the right way to go about it. So I always, whenever I'm making decks for my clients, always focus on making it just for one company. We can use a template and switch out the logo, colors, text, pictures, all that. But we want to focus on how we can actually help out this company. So we started off with the cover page, and then the second slide, family first. You can see this is one paragraph that talks about the team, and it's not a whole biography or a whole list of accomplishments. One thing that I see in decks is they want to make the deck all about them and their accomplishments, what they can do. And remember, the deck is supposed to be about the company and how you are helping them. So we did share about their recent highlights, and then we talked more about what their series is. So because this company that we were pitching to was a law firm, they probably aren't very familiar with the Ultra 4 series. And so we did mention what the series is about, the Jeep that they race. we did have a video here that they can click on to go watch, which, like what you guys heard earlier, they really like the ability to have clickable links. And then moved on to why we want to work with you. Here are the top 4 reasons of why Glines Motorsports wants to work with Craig Swap and Associates. And this image came directly off their website. And then we talked more about where the team comes in, what can they offer. And one thing that I always try to do with decks is to just have the highlights of what you can deliver, like what Alex had mentioned earlier. And so we can do meet and greets, we can do ride-alongs, we can do community events or customer appreciation rides. We can offer all this stuff, but most importantly, it is tailored to each company. So here's the locations. They are based out of the West Coast side, and so was the law firm as well. And so we also showed here's some other events that they'll be going to. And I love putting the pins on the map so the company can actually see where they are. I think my AirPod just died. Sorry guys. Let me make sure my microphone. Okay. I think I'm not sure if my microphone is still working. Anyways, so we did then go on to the media recognition, and you know, this is where they're getting the series is being aired at. Again, another video that can be watched here, clickable link where they did do an interview on stage. And then we talked about their online presence, how they are growing, what the demographics are from their Instagram. And then what they can offer as far as team branding goes. Again, this isn't a full list of all of their deliverables, but it just gives them an idea of what they can do. And then last page, thank you page. And then next steps, let's meet so we can discuss the assets and the event details, and then determine the goal and budget of how we can work together. So and like I said, we can just use this as a template, change out some of those deliverables, change out logos, pictures, colors, and then tweak it so that way we can use it for the next company that they want to talk to. And oh, and he did leave a message in the chat. It says, with this deck, we were able to secure a sponsorship with them, and now they are going on for their 2nd year with Craig Swap and Associates. So thank you guys. Glad you are on with us here. So really quick, do we have any questions about the deck? You guys can leave them in the chat box. And then I think I actually have to stop sharing my screen so that way I can pull up the proposal, because that is on a different document. All righty. Not really seeing any questions yet, so I will pull up the proposal. Okay, I'm gonna take these out because I think my AirPods actually died. Can you guys still hear me okay? Screen. So in the chat box, I did leave a comment on in the chat with a link to where you guys can get this proposal template through Alex and myself. So we've got this already made for you. You just have to change in the places that are highlighted. And so as you can see immediately, this looks a lot different from the deck. The deck was more about the images, really trying to capture their attention, whereas the proposal here is just basically a business document. It's a business proposal. And so we need it to be straightforward. There's no pictures in here. I mean, other than just putting the logo on the front page, and then you can also put it on the end if you want to. So like I said, you just change out the highlighted areas. You can use, if you want to use the term partnership or the term sponsorship, up to you, whatever, you know, some people prefer one or the other. And then it's proposal with your team name and your contact information. We have the table of contents, and inside of here, you'll see first off, there's just an executive summary. And I suggest doing this part last because you want to summarize everything, and it's easier to do that after you've already written everything out. One thing that we do include here is the team members, their names and positions. If you have a lot of team members,
for our team, we have about a dozen just different drivers, and then we have at least a dozen crew members. So we have a lot of people on our team. So I just like to list them all out, and then the different types of vehicles that are going to be sponsored that we are proposing to this company. Next page is the schedule of races and appearances. So we have the date, locations, and type of events, and you can do it 1 column or 2 columns. And these are the ones that you are proposing to the company to work with. So it could be for a whole year, or maybe it's just in a certain region. Maybe it's just one event or one race that you are asking them to work with. Next up is the whole meat of the proposal, and this is the deliverable. So Alex listed off a ton of different things of what you can include as your deliverables. And I just have these, bullet points listed here, but obviously you would go in and add what it is you are actually doing. So with product and service, are you offering them exclusivity, or, are you doing any product sampling for them? What percentage or amount of products will the sponsor cover? Are they giving you free products for the whole year? And what percentage of the amount are you going to cover? Same thing with the branding and livery section. What percent or amount of designs and prints is the sponsor going to cover? So are they going to pay to put the sticker on your car? Are they going to pay for you to have to get new shirts made? Or are you going to be covering that? So you want to list out like the size, the location, where you're going to be branding them at. Like, are you going to be hanging up a banner in your pits, or are you going to be, doing something in your shop to promote them? You have to list out every single thing and be specific. So include the sizes and who is covering the cost and the locations of each of those items for branding. And then we have hospitality. So this is typically, meals, tickets. Are you doing stuff at the actual races that they can come and hang out with you? Is it going to be in your pits? Is it going to be a suite in the tower? Or maybe they are going to do something at your shop, or maybe you have like an open house coming up or something in the community. Again, that kind of falls in line with appearances. Are you going to be, doing any displays with them? Are you going to be, doing any sampling, any media autograph signings? Are you going on radio station, TV? Like any of this stuff is where you list it out. Same thing with the press, social and digital media. So this would be like, I'm going to be doing 3 posts per month promoting your company. And so I will be using this tag for Instagram, this tag for Facebook, these types of hashtags. And, I'll have to make sure I send the post to the company like 7 days before you're actually going to post it so they can review it. You just need to get really, really specific and granular here with the deliverables that you are proposing in exchange for the sponsorship with them. Last page, or second to last page, is the brand endorsement. So this again is just saying we're going to be using these hashtags, these handles on social media, this website or an affiliate link, or if you have a discount code, what exactly is it that you will be promoting as the ambassador for them? And then one thing that I did include in here is just the basic overall duties as a brand ambassador. It should just be common knowledge that you need to be clean and professional, and you're not going to be promoting a competitor company. You're not going to wear someone else's team t-shirt and it has, their competitor on their shirts. So you want to make sure that you guys are just on the same page when it comes to this, and make sure that your team members are also aware of this as well. So they're not wearing someone else's team shirt that might have a competing logo on it. The final page is the funding request. So this is, how many dollars are you requesting in exchange for all those deliverables? And then we also have, example of 50% is going to be due by this date. The remaining 50% will be due by this date. You can totally change the payment schedule to whatever you and the company agree to. Sometimes it's all at once. Sometimes it's monthly, sometimes quarterly, 50-50. So you never know, but that is a conversation you need to have with that company. And then if you are, which you definitely should do, a proof of performance report, say when you are going to send that to them, and then also when you need to start having this discussions for renewal of the sponsorship. And so, like I said, we have this template ready to go for you guys. So I did include the link in the chat box for you to go and purchase it. And if there's any questions, I'll pull up the chat box really quick because I will need to stop sharing my screen again and go back to Canva. Okay, I see. Let's see. How can we send these decks to get companies' attention? So with these, I love to send them just through email. With the fact that it's a link in Canva, I'll pull that back up really quick. But with Canva, we are able to get a link to view the presentation. So you can download it as a PDF or as a presentation. You can download it as an actual video, the reason why I don't like to download it and then attach it to an email is because it usually ends up being too big to be uploaded, and maybe their server can't handle that size, and so they actually don't even get it. So I don't recommend that. I just recommend sending them the actual link to view the presentation, and I'll pull up Canva again and show you guys that. So Canva is something that I love using for all of the presentations, decks, anything that I design. I do it pretty much in Canva now, even though I do have a degree in graphic design and I have all the softwares. I hardly ever use them anymore, but it's really easy to go in and add pictures. It's just drag and drop. You can add your own, shapes, graphs, anything like that. There's text, there's all different types of fonts that you can use here. You can upload your images and pull them over. It's drag and drop. It's really, really easy to use. So many free templates. And so what you can do is if you go to Canva, this is the homepage, and it asks you, what will you design today? I like to type in pitch deck. And then there you will see there's going to be like hundreds and thousands. So 1,528 templates that you can choose from. Some of them you can pay for, some of them are free. But you can just go through, pick which design best fits your brand and the company's brand that you are pitching to, and just pick one and run with it. And you can use how, they lay it out. It's not always meant for, a race team, but you can change the designs of it. So when you do want to, you're all done with it, you just click the share button up here. And then you can hit the view only link, and that will take you to where you can share this link with the company in an email, and then they can view the whole presentation and you can walk through it with them in a Zoom call just like this. So last but not least, I want to go really quickly over the pop reports. I have two different versions. So I have a race recap one, which I sent within 24 hours of the end of a race. And first thing that I do is I include a button of where they can download photos and videos for that company to share on their social media channels. So I will upload everything onto a Dropbox folder, and then I'll grab that link and just attach it as a hyperlink here where they can go and download the pictures. Then I include the race details. So this race was called Chaos in the Cornfield, the date, the track, the drivers. This is how we qualified. This is the eliminations we did, and also what press we did. So these were press interviews that we had leading up to the race. And so this was whether it was our own press release we wrote, or if we did an interview with, local radio station or newspaper. And then, if as long as those articles had already been published online, I can go ahead and get that link, and then I share it here. And then before, during, and after our social media posts that we did. So we made 18 posts throughout the time, and I have a link here so they can see the best posts that we did, total impressions, engagements, and video views we got during the time of the race on Facebook, and then same thing for our Instagram pages. And we have a team page, and then we also have driver pages. So I add up all of those metrics and put it on here because we're talking all about the race and our partners throughout, on every page. our next race, and then where we are currently at points and positions. And then I love to include screenshots of the live stream. And so this series is covered by Flow. And so what's really cool is this series did, I'll zoom in, they would go in and pick up the tag of the race, which I think the tag for this one was chaos in the cornfield. So you can see that hashtag right here. And during the breaks between races, Flow would grab those social media posts from Instagram and show it on the live stream. And so we did product promotional videos on our Instagram. Make sure to use that hashtag, and our product promo videos were shown on the live stream to the entire Flow audience. So made sure to grab screenshots of that. Here's a screenshot of us actually racing the live stream, another social media post. And so you can see it's a mix of the actual on-track action versus social media posts. And these were all sponsors, promotion posts that we did. So, so this is our race recap. Like I said, we try to send it within 24 hours of when the race finishes. So that way the company knows this is what we did to represent you. These are our results, and here's how you can talk about it as well. And really quickly, I want to go over the year-end pop report that we do. And this one for us is really focused on audience and media. So you can see this one is very similar to how the deck looks. This is for us, this is our own branding. And so our decks do look similar to this type of branding. So, but one thing we do is we survey our audience every year, and we find out all types of information about them. And then we include that in this report for our sponsors. So whether we can use this to show our existing sponsors, hey, this is who our audience actually is, or we can use this data to attract new partners and say, hey, you know, are you trying to reach, you know, men that are blue collar workers that make this amount of income, that are interested in these types of events? You know, we can say, hey, we are meeting your exact requirements of who your target audience is. And so, let's see, let's pick a good one. And so right here, when asked, most of the respondents said their biggest complaints and desires are time for their family and hobbies, fitness and wellness, and politics and economics. So that tells me, you know, hey, I need to focus on finding a partner that their value and their mission is to bring families together, you know, whether it is maybe with outdoor sports and hobbies like fishing or camping, maybe it's a fitness company. So this is telling me this is what my audience complaints are. How can I help them out and find a partner that will fit with their with my audience? So I'm just going to go through this really quick. It's just a bunch of charts and graphs and data, but these are all questions that we survey our team. And this one is really interesting. What are your favorite automotive products and brands to use? And so you can see one of the biggest ones is oil and fuel filters. And so then I have a list here. These are what the audience said, what companies they use. And so most of them said Lucas Oil, some said Mobil One, Valvoline, Wix, Amsoil, Canon, Royal Purple. And so this tells me this is what my audience is actually using. I need to go and present this data to this company. So like I said, there's just a bunch of charts and graphs in here, but we do include social media demographics and social media post results here. And you can see, you know, which month we did really good, which months we did, you know, not as good on social media, as well as our website and our newsletter. So how many visits are we getting to our website? How many newsletter subscribers do we have? And then last but not least, our plans for the following year and what our goals are, you know, are we going to be focusing more on, you know, trying to attract a certain demographic, or, you know, that type of stuff. So I know we are on time here for the next session. But so I just want to make sure you guys understand there's a huge difference here, like what Alex was saying, between the deck versus the proposal versus the proof of performance report. And so like I said, our proof of performance report, that one was a lot more focused on the audience and our media, but make sure it's one that meets the requirements of what that company is looking for in your reports. And you have to ask them in order to understand what that is.
And the two big takeaways from that is every deck and every proposal has to be customized. And when you're creating those POP reports, the proof of performance reports, you don't wait until the end of the year to do it. Start compiling them after every single event. You saw how much information goes into it. You try to do that at the end of the season or year end, oh, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to forget and you're going to miss a lot. But if you do it every time you conduct an activity on behalf of the sponsor, you compile that, it's much easier to do and then put it into a year-end report. George, is there a question?
Yeah, so we have 3 great questions. We're going to combine 2 of them into one. The first
is mic on?
Yeah, we have 3 great questions. We're going to provide or combine 2 of them into one. And before Megan, Catherine was talking about sizzle reels compared to like a long form deck, which has many pages in it. Which one do you consider better or more attractive? And then how do you actually get that out or get that to the person in a normal case?
Yes, good question. So in my experience, I have just done the actual decks and just the digital version. I really don't do print versions anymore. So I have not done a sizzle reel. And so that is a good idea. I'm glad that it's something that is being talked here because that might be a transition of how companies are, how you can get their attention. So that is something that we could try in the future. But I would say that would be more expensive to produce because you might need to either
Absolutely.
purchase footage or get the footage from your series, or like we could get footage from Flow, or you might need to hire a videographer. I don't know, how many events, or if it's something you can just do one time, like at your shop. So I could see how the cost could increase by doing a sizzle reel. And it might not be individualized for each company, but it could be just a really good thing that you can do to just really introduce yourself. And I love what Catherine said about just having a QR code to that video on your business card and giving it to her. And so she can learn more about you through that way. And then I think it was Eric that had said earlier to use the deck while you are actually having communication with them. So I can see how I wouldn't say exactly like the sizzle reel. In my opinion, I don't think the sizzle reel would replace the deck. I think it would just help lead to the deck and how you can then continue the communication with them.
And the sizzle reel only works if someone has a computer or a handheld or a phone in front of them. A deck they can take on an airplane and read, or anywhere. Deck is like a coffee table material. George, there's another question.
Yeah, so Alex, I think you'd be good answering this one. This is on the opposite end of the sequence. What do you use to track and survey like the end result of those examples that Megan is talking about?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by end examples.
Well, how do you track all of that stuff? Like I know we've done summits with the Hook It guys and they track the statistics and all that stuff. So maybe we can get into understanding how effective those things are.
So the information that goes into the statistics or the demographics or the series numbers, media kit, they come out of media kits from series. And I usually get those from the series directly, if that's what the question is. I'm not sure if I'm answering it right.
I might be able to
ahead,
help. I'm going to share my screen again and show the spreadsheet that we use to collect all this data, because that might be what they're asking for. So I have a spreadsheet where we collect all this data into before I put it into the proof of performance report. And so first up is the demographics. And so I pull demographics from Instagram, Facebook, and our website. And so this comes from Google Analytics. And then we get our averages. So for ages and then gender as well. I have a column here where we have our race results. So for every single driver on our team, and I split everything up by quarter. And then I also include like the links to the press releases, which I have not finished this one up yet. And then TV time. So this is like what Alex was saying. I get the numbers from NHRA of how many viewers are watching the recaps, whether it's on Fox Sports, NHRA TV, YouTube, or the Flow Racing. I will ask the series for those numbers. Press, this is links to every article, every website, every podcast that our team has done. So as soon as I know like a podcast or an article is out, I just grab the title, the publication, and the URL, and I throw it in here. Social media, I include what our best posts have been per month, and then total of all of our engagements, video views, impressions that we did each month. And then same thing up is for our website. And so how many page views are we getting for each website? Which website pages are people actually visiting? And so, and then as well as our newsletter as well, how many subscribers are we growing by each quarter to our newsletter? So I just use a spreadsheet and I just track all of this information in there. So it's easy to pull it and make the proof of performance at the end.
And the reason why this is important is because this is information that the marketing director can give the CFO or the CEO to show the effectiveness of the sponsorship. If you're not doing this, then racers like Megan and others who are doing it are blowing you away when it comes to the data that they're giving sponsors. You have to do this stuff. If you want to take sponsorships seriously, and the renewals, at least, to get renewed, and we're going to talk to Antron again, and he's 16 years with Toyota. It's not because he shows up in races. It's because of the business of the sponsorship that he does on the back end, which includes social. So that's going to be the segue into the next session. We went a little overtime, but that was excellent. Not that we're on time. We don't need to be because it's the same speakers. So social media is key here because social media reaches everybody. We live in a world where there's an electronic highway that connects every single one of us. And a sponsor wants you to be their connection to a broader audience, whether that audience is at the track. You can be connected with them one-on-one and in person, and you can engage and shake hands and look in the eyes. Or like Eric said earlier, you can also have a electronic or a digital connection with somebody, and that's through social media. And social media is changing very rapidly. I'm not even going to talk about it because I'm so old school. I don't use social media. I use LinkedIn a little bit, but that's about it. Megan is going to talk about how to best use social media and how it's been changing so that you can create value for yourself and sponsors. And I'm going to stay on too in case I have any questions. So Megan, let's transition over to creating value through social media.
Yeah, and I am going to share my screen one more time. I got one more report I want to show you guys. I was not planning on showing this. This is something, I don't know if I've shared it before at any of the summits. So I think this is a good transition. So like what Alex just said, you need to do these reports and track this data to be able to stand out from the rest, because it's, if you're not communicating with your sponsor on your performance and how you're doing on the track as well as off the track, then you are really limiting yourself of your chances of renewal. And so one thing that we do, so I love to do, I don't want to say I love this. I don't love doing these reports, but it's just necessary. But I do monthly, quarterly, and then the year-end POC report. So these are our monthly reports. We just focus on our social media performance. And I tailor these to each sponsor that we send them to. It starts out with the breakdown of how we did each month, our top 3 posts overall for that month. So we do Instagram and then we do Facebook. And then this is where I tweak it. And so this report is specifically for Lucas Oil. So I will then go in and take screenshots of every post where I included a either mention or a hashtag of Lucas Oil, take a screenshot, share how they did. And so you can see this was just for the whole month. But then at the end, I take screenshots of the comments that people are leaving in our post. And, Lucas products are in all the engines I own. Lucas is the best. It's simple, effective, safe. This is what people are commenting on our posts. And the sponsors love to see this. They want to know that your customer or your audience is their customers and they're actually using their product. And so this is just another thing that we do to help stand out from the rest. And we want to make sure the sponsor understands we are promoting them on our social media, and it's not something that is a requirement. They definitely don't ask for these reports, but it is something that helps us stand out. And social media is the easiest and the best way to where you can stand out from the rest, whether you are making these types of reports or not. But like what Eric said in the beginning, where they're doing the Team Permatex contest, to where they're focusing just on, I think he said, for 8 weeks of content that you're posting on social media. And like he said, right now is kind of the slow time because it's off season, and so we're not racing typically. And so you're probably thinking, well, I don't know what to post. So a couple of tips that I have for when it comes to social media is to, number one, plan your content ahead of time. So I like to take the beginning of the month, pull up a calendar. I use an app for this, and I will color code like which social media platform. So like Instagram is purple, blue is Facebook, YouTube's red, LinkedIn is a different shade of blue. And so I will categorize my content and figure out which days I need to post on which platforms, and look at it, kind of get an overall picture of what the month ahead is going to look like for each social media client and team that I have. So I do this for myself as well as each team and client that I work for. And so categorize your content. It makes it so much easier when you are trying to plan, if you just have a couple of different categories that you can pull from. So it could be race results or race highlights. It could be a product promotion. It could be behind the scenes of working in the shop. It could be something personal. I love to share like personal hobbies, being with my family, because that helps separate me from everyone else. So my racing page is not 100% racing. It's, about what I like to do when I'm away from the track, which nowadays I am away from the track 95% of the year. And so those are just a couple different ideas of different types of content categories. And what you can do is look back at the year 2023 and what type of content did you post? Did you do, maybe you did a lot of videos, like a highlight reel video after each race to talk about your performance. Maybe you like to share posts of your hobbies. Maybe you really love fishing when you're not racing, and that could be a content category. So go back in the past, look at what you did before and see the performance. Maybe like I know fishing is something that fishing and hunting posts that I do always do really well, because my audience also loves to go fish and hunt. They're outdoorsmen, and most racing fans are. And so I know, hey, my audience really likes this post that I did in the past. I'll make sure to keep sharing that type of content in the future. But one thing you also can do is repost your content. And something that I hear from racers is they think, hey, I posted that video a month or 2 months ago or a year ago. My audience already saw it. I can't share that again. They're not going to like it. And that's just simply not true. As you grow every single day, hopefully you're gaining new followers. And so maybe you have a couple hundred new followers for January 2024 that you didn't have in, let's say, June of 2023. And maybe you had a really cool video that you posted, or maybe it was a sponsor promotion post that you did. There is nothing that says you cannot share that again. It will either perform just as well or do better because you have new eyes that can see it. And also, there's only a very small percentage of the people that actually follow your pages that see your content. And I think it's anywhere from 6 to 10%. So there's a very small window of your audience that actually saw that video the first time. There's nothing that says you cannot repost it again. So I like to wait at least 90 days before I will repost something, and it always does better the next time. So keep that in mind. I do have, for my last tip, some ideas that you can post in the off season. Like I heard Eric say, content kind of goes down this time of year because it is off season. But just because you're not racing doesn't mean you can't keep posting on social. You need to keep up with it all year long so you can continue to build that momentum and keep growing your followers and engagements. So some ideas that you could do is like top 10 performances from 2023. And you can share like a recap photo, a collage, or a video of your best performances that you had last year. You can also do sponsor product promotion of how you use that product at home or in the race shop. So, maybe it's something, so like oil, for example, maybe you're doing an oil change on your daily driver and you can show how you change the oil and change the filter. And, saying, hey, I'm not only using this product in my race car, I also use it in my truck or in my daily driver at home. And this, of course, helps your sponsor out and promotes them. If you sell merchandise, you could do a year-end sale or, like beginning of the year sale saying, hey, I'm trying to get rid of these older t-shirts, hats, bags, koozies, because we're making way for new inventory, new merchandise. So you could have a sale to, discount the old inventory so that way you can get it off your shelf. You can do a schedule preview for next year. So if you have your schedule already set for 2024, you can turn it into a graphic where you have a list of like the dates and locations, and you can share that. And of course, ask your audience, hey, which race do you want to come to? Which race are you looking forward to? Or which race, are you going to be watching on a live stream or on TV? You can talk about projects that you are doing in the shop. So behind the scenes content always does really, really well. So even the most simplest thing of what you're working on, just set your phone up on a couple of boxes, or if you have a tripod or if you have a windowsill, set your phone up and you could do like either a time-lapse video or just record 10 seconds of you working on something, working on anything, like whether you're bolting something together or if you're just cleaning something. That type of content does so good on social media. So any type of service that you are doing in the off season, you can show that. Also, you can show your personality. So this is where I like to ask my audience, hey, send some questions in to us. It could be anything, like ask us anything. It could be funny questions. It could be performance questions. It could be, any popular questions we get about like, what is this thing on the race car? Or why do you do this certain thing? Or it could be, what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite snack? And then record a video of you answering those questions. So showing your personality and just being relatable to get to know your fans and, doing like a Q&A with them is always a great way to get more interactions. And then, couple other things I had talked about hobbies. Last thing is you can reshare or repost interviews that you did in the 2023 season. And, if you have any interviews coming up, always promote them and hype them up as well. So any, like if you did a podcast last year or a video and it did really well, you can reshare that again and say, hey, did you miss this the first time? Talk about like whatever topic you talked about in that interview, and you can repost it as well. So just a few different content ideas to give you guys in the off season before you get your race season started up again.
Cool. That was cool. There's so much on social media that I don't know, and it's changing so fast. It's overwhelming, actually. Absolutely overwhelming. But one thing I can say is social is key, because although I don't use it, I have a few followers on LinkedIn, and obviously to promote this and to get people to attend, I put up LinkedIn messages. Then all of the panelists and several affiliates that are part of my membership program, they also sent links out, and I monitor results with promo codes. And I got to say, Megan outsold everybody 5-1 when it came to the use of her promo codes. So what she's doing on social media, it works. It really works. Listen to Megan and learn her process, because I can personally see the results of having a strong social following. The next best affiliate literally had, less than 5-to-1 promo code redemption. So Megan, you kick butt once again. Everybody, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. So everybody can grab a bite to eat, run to the restroom, answer messages, and we'll be back in 10 minutes to start over. Start again, not start over. See you soon. The demolition derby, then that'd be a good way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Uh-oh, crew's coming back. Here we go. Thanks, everybody. All right, we're live. We're ready. We are recording again. So let's queue up Dan Schechner and Stuart Rollins. So our next session is generating publicity for yourself and sponsors. And social media is publicity, obviously, but it's not the only thing out there. There's older people like me. I'm in my late 50s. I don't really use social that much. I do post on LinkedIn occasionally, but that's about it. I monitor my kids on Instagram and Facebook, but I don't really post a lot. I am not an influencer by any means, but I like magazines and I like newspapers. So traditional media is still a very, very, very effective way of reaching somebody like me. Let's get Dan Schechner from Top End Consulting and former editor of PRI Magazine, and Stuart Rollins. Stuart actually has been doing motorsports publicity, I think, longer than I've been alive. And he's going to get mad at me. I'm going to make him laugh. I'm not supposed to make him laugh because Stuart, you're muted, but Stuart has had surgery on his upper lip. So he told me not to make him laugh.
Here we go. Let me unmute that. How's that?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
So Stuart is with Stuart Rollins PR. And I mean, he started with Fast Freddy and Bob Hanna and Muhammad Ali. I worked with Stuart for 8 years at Lucas Oil. So we have a lot of common connections. And Dan, I've been working with forever with PRI. I think I've been a speaker at PRI for over a decade, and that was all through Dan. So let me jump right into it. You don't have to win races to get publicity. You do not have to stand on a podium to be recognized in the media. You have to generate your own publicity or have somebody generate it for you. And you have to understand the system. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the system of media, the system of getting into magazines, the system of getting into newspapers or getting on television. Dan, if I'm a racer, how do I get in the media? How do I get exposure?
Yeah, that's a good question. Can you hear me okay, Alex?
It's a little bit soft, but yes, I can hear you. Maybe turn it up slightly.
Okay, I'll try to adjust here if I can. Yeah. So good question. However, I would tell you right off the bat, the first thing is to narrow your focus. There are so many different types of media out there today. As you mentioned, there's social, there's the traditional, there's broadcast, there's digital. There are so many different types. And that's not a bad thing, but it just takes a little bit of adjusting. Okay. So the first thing that I would advise is figure out what type of media coverage you're looking for. Is it print? Is it digital? Is it local? Is it national? Like, these are questions that you're going to have to decide before you really jump into it. Okay. One way you can do that is pick one out, right? Pick an outlet or a form of media that you really like. Study it a little bit. See what the coverage looks like. See what types of stories they run, right? This is going to be a little bit of reverse engineering. Okay, so that'll give you an idea of what they're looking for and whether you're a good fit or not. And that's really your starting point, right? You're going to reverse engineer that sucker. You're going to start from the end result and you're going to work your way backwards. Okay, once you've done that, then you can start thinking about things like the who's going to do it, the how, how are we going to do it? But there's more, right? You also need to figure out, there's a couple of whys involved, right? And the first one is, why would they want to cover me? Okay, why do you deserve coverage? You got to ask yourself that, because if you don't have a really good answer, then there's your answer. Right? So you ask yourself, why would an editor want to run my story? What's in it for them? You got to think a little bit transactionally. Okay. Understand that if you're a racer, you're competing against every other racer on the planet for attention. So what makes your story unique, right? What makes your story relevant? What makes your story timely? What do you have that's of value? What can you offer? Again, thinking transactional. Once you have some of those answers, can you convey that briefly and clearly, right? That gets into your public relations and your media relations, because time is money, baby, and nobody has enough of either one. So you got to get that sorted out. Then you can start looking at, how do I get media exposure? But to your point, as you let us in, it's about some of these fundamentals.
So when you were with PRI Magazine, what did you look for? Let's say we got 100 racers on the call today and they all want to get into PRI Magazine. At the time, what did you look for, assuming it translates into other magazines and motorsports as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I lose track if I told you how many times I got approached by racers and teams and said, hey, you got to write about us. Hey, you got to tell us your story. And my question to them is why? You know, what is it that you have that nobody else has? It's one of those things that falls into the bucket of editorial judgment, right? And every editor has a different, what we'll call like a value system, but what's of value to them. So for me, working at PRI, we were a international publication. We focused on the industry, right? So I'm not going to write about a particular team unless you're doing something that is relevant industry-wide, right? You're going to get a different response from different editors for different publications. So it really comes down to what I said before, which is study the media that you're interested in, right? Don't just shotgun it, right? You're going to need different pitches for different types of media. So something that would resonate with me, let's say, is a driver who maybe was also helping. What's that?
I think we have someone needs to mute their microphone.
Oh, no problem. So somebody who would come to me and say, look, I'm a driver, but I'm also helping promote this new series. And we're getting a lot of new interest. The series is picking up steam in a place that didn't have a lot of racing presence or didn't have a big footprint before. And I'm helping out with promotional efforts. And I'm doing this while earning my, my MBA in business administration and working part-time at an animal rescue, whatever it is. I mean, there's going to be stories that are intriguing inherently, right? And you're going to look at it as an editor and say, yeah, that's something that's of interest, not just to me personally, but to my readers. So every magazine, every publication, every outlet is going to have a different answer for that. And it's going to be in line with what resonates with their audience. And they're going to make that decision editorially.
Makes a lot of sense. And then let's jump over to Stuart real quick. Stuart, I know you just did the Ferrari story. So
I did, yeah.
A lot of the racers on the call here, they were not part of the Ferrari story. It's a pretty big deal. You've dealt with huge names, Muhammad Ali and many others. Amateur racers, new racers, young racers, people that don't have a story yet. How can they get publicity? What kind of advice do you have for the racers on the call who are looking to create value and maybe brand themselves and create value for sponsors through publicity?
Okay, you're probably right. I listened to everybody and I thought their presentations are fantastic. My problem is that nobody really deals with the basics. How do you say, hello, here I am, I'm a racer, okay? And to do that, you want to think basically, if I were a racer just starting out somewhere in Orange County, whatever it might be, then I, frankly, would draw a map, get a map, look at about a 50-mile area, and I would get every newspaper, every weekly newspaper, every magazine, every TV, every radio station within that area, and I would get their emails, and I would get their telephone numbers, direct lines, not going to a particular newspaper and you find it has one general line which nobody answers to the phone. You need the guy's direct line, and I would go around to as many of these as you can. I used to teach people years ago, doing basically what they went to USC and they were learning public relations. And I said, look, I'm going to teach you how to get lost in the LA Times. Okay, this is basic PR. You see, I started as a runner in Fleet Street, and you must know the people, you must know the editors, and all you're trying to do to start with is simply make yourself known to the local media. Okay, and that means you obviously turn up, you're shaved, showered, or whatever, and you turn up and you go to the reception area and put a press release down. If you don't know how to do a press release, or you don't know how to get a media list together, find a publicist and talk to him, okay, and see if he can do it for you at a reasonable price. But you have to start with the basics. And sorry, it's a silly little thing. Freddie Spencer, I don't know who knows him or who knows Fast
That's
Freddie,
Freddie.
but for years I did his PR for Honda, 6 years in fact. And we're in Donington Park in England, and Freddie's standing there. It was the first time in England. He said, turned to me, we're in the pits, and he said, "Okay, Stu, is it true that if I am famous, I will be rich?" And I said, "Yes," because it is true. That's what I do. I build people, whether it's singers or whatever it might be. The fact is that's what people pay me to do. So he said, "Well, what do I do?" And I said, "Freddie, this is a huge crowd of journalists and fans and so forth. They're all in the pits." And I said, "Freddie, who's the star here?" And he said, "Well, 3-time world champion Barry Sheene." And I said, "Okay, Fred, take your hat off, take your glasses off, get across the paddock. It's just that simple. Go and talk to Barry and smile, and Barry will know exactly what you're up to. But he's a good guy." Okay, and sure enough, he walks over to Barry. He's all nervous. Barry takes him, literally puts his arm around him, takes him and puts him alongside him and starts talking to the media again. All the publicity from those races, which was the Transatlantic Trophy match races, Freddie was in it. And that's how he started. And going, it's hard work. PR is extremely hard work. For example, I'd be at Laguna Seca again with Freddie, and we had to, he was flying out of LAX as he lives in Shreveport, and we did 18 interviews on the way down. I called every radio station, every television station, every newspaper, every weekly newspaper, every college newspaper, and it took us all day to get from Laguna Seca to LAX, and he worked extremely hard. And he's if you cannot want to be anything in your business, in the racing business, you need to be something. There is a lot of competition out there, but you have to start somewhere, and you start at the basics. You start at the bottom. You try and find yourself a sponsor, and you maybe it's a Popeye's chicken, or maybe it's a machine shop or a garage or whatever it might be. But that relationship is where you start. And don't forget, the important thing is you don't work for them. They don't work for you. They've given you money. You work for them. You are part of their team, and you show up as part of their team. I once did I don't know why I'm talking about once, but anyway, I once did an event back east, and we had a very famous motocrosser who was a national champion. And he didn't show up for the dealer had brought in a radio station and brought in the newspapers and brought in some fans, and the guy just simply didn't show. So the following year, he said, "Look, you've got to guarantee you're going to show. We're going to put this all together." And again, the racer didn't show, and the dealer actually turned around and basically sued. Just not just the team, but also, in fact, it was Team Honda, to be precise. Then in those sort of cases, that is the worst thing you can do. You're on their team. Go and make them happy. Bring them into the pits. But okay, sorry, can I go back a little bit and talk about basic PR? You need
one thing you mentioned, which I think is key, and I'm gonna not summarize, but I'd like to just highlight what you just said. When you're saying start with the basics, it's very logical. Start local. Start with local media, your local hometown media, your local hometown news. I remember Humpy Wheeler once said, I remember reading this, and I think I wrote about it. The local news feeds the regional news news feeds the national news, and the national news feeds the global news. Exactly. So it starts local. News starts local.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
So that was the interview that I did with Humpy back in 2012.
No way. Oh, that was you, man.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, I'm in your book. I didn't know if you realized that, but
yeah, Humpy Wheeler.
Yeah, right here.
Right on.
Yeah, which I recommend to anybody, by the way, anyone on this call, Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorship, Alex Streiler, always keep it close by. So unpaid commercial endorsement.
That's funny.
It's really it's huge.
Well, then another thing that Stuart said is get to know the editor, Dan, and you were editor of PRI magazine. Did the people, the racers who you published, did you have a personal relationship with them? Is that because they got to know you, or did they just have good, compelling stories? People
No,
on
I love
call
the
today,
one.
how did they get published?
No, I love the ones that sent me gifts and money. Those are my favorite. No, no, no. Yeah, I had, no, they did. And look, just to piggyback what Stuart was saying, because he's 100% right. One of my do's and don'ts that I had listed here that I was going to hit you with later is basically number one is start out local. So, you know, don't pitch national publications or media outlets if you don't have a national story. Kind of goes back with what we were saying before, which is, you know, how do you decide what to run and what not to run? People would, like I say, they approach me all the time. You should write about me. Why? Why should I write about you? What, you know, what's your value proposition? Again, to, you know, use a little corporate speak. But no, Stuart's absolutely right. Look, everyone likes a local story. It's much, much easier to get in with the local media than it is to go national or to go Road and Track or Motor Trend or any of those guys. You know, they've got, I mean, any magazine worth its salt is going to have an editorial calendar. I should probably back up because that's like a whole nother discussion. Alex, you were asking about how do you know, make inroads with an editor. One of the best ways is ask. I mean, ask them, say, what stories do you like to run? Go on their website or request an editorial calendar or request a from the editor or from one of the writers.
Calendar.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Editorial. How when are editorial calendars printed? How soon out? Like a year out, months out, a quarter out? Because that's interesting. If I know your editorial calendar, what you want to print in 3 months, I might be able to insert myself there.
That's exactly what it is, right? So magazines that I've worked for have always had editorial calendars. And essentially what it is, if you don't know, it's basically you're just laying out every month of the following year what topics you're going to be covering. So at PRI, for example, we would come out with the 2024 calendar in like late summer of 23. So we know probably a good 6 months in advance, and then going into the following year, what we're going to be writing about. And that's totally accessible. It's completely available. So if anybody ever asks for it's not a secret. If anybody asks for the editorial calendar, I'd be happy to give it to them. Look, that's how we plan out our stories. Let me throw something else at you too. And we haven't really talked about, or not in this session, but being an ambassador for your sponsors, right? If you're a racer, you ask for an editorial calendar and you see a product category or you see a topic that would be a good fit for your sponsor, be an advocate for them. Reach out and say, hey, you know what? I see you're doing camshafts. I just switched over to this great one, and it's making all kinds of difference in my program. Let me let you speak to let me let you speak to the engineer or a developer or somebody that I work with over at that company, and he can tell you all about it. There's many, many ways that you can provide value. Maybe it's not your story. Maybe your story isn't of interest to every publication or every media outlet, but you probably have something that is. So dig deep, right? Dig a little bit and see and think, wait a minute, I might not be that person, but I may know that person. That makes sense.
It almost sounds like meeting an editor is almost like trying to find a sponsor. You have to, you know, when you're looking for sponsorship, you have to meet that person, get to know them. Same as when you want your story printed. Stuart, let's go to you. How many of the editors or publishers of the different publications that you get stories in do you know personally versus you know that your story is a fit for a magazine, even though you might not have a relationship there?
I must admit, I always start pitching. I always start with people I know. Okay, so just on the Ferrari story, we had 15. Basically, they handed me a man called Robert Nabel, who was the head stuntman and the chap who put the cars together and all this sort of stuff. He also did the same for Ford versus Ferrari. And they said, look, what can you do? So I called everybody I know, okay, in the business, and I've known them all for 40 or 50 years running around racetracks. Or doing press rooms or whatever it might be. And it was for me a very easy pitch. It wasn't for somebody else who didn't know them, but I had their direct lines, I had their direct emails. And so we ended up with, you know, basically 15 interviews with, you know, National Speed Sport News or Haggerty or whatever it might be, Car and Driver, Road and Track. I mean, it just goes, Auto Week, it just goes on. But that's how you start. And it's important to start with people you know when you're pitching, because otherwise you can be nervous to a stranger. By the time you've done about 10 or 50 or 12 interviews, believe me, you're up and running and you're pitching like mad, and it then becomes pretty darn easy, I must admit. It's something I've done for so many years that it's difficult.
Let me ask this: is there a format for press releases or for that initial
Absolutely.
contact?
There is, and obviously in a local hometown racer, you're talking about who you are locally, but it's a good catchy headline, and it's 3 or 4 paragraphs and a photograph. By the way, always include a photograph every time you get it. It's no point in them saying, "Well, I think you have one of me in the files." They haven't got one of they're not about to look for it anyway. So always include a photograph with your press releases. Keep the press releases simple but interesting. And if not, find out there'll be a publicist locally, find out how he does it and go and see him. And you should, or call them, because frankly, the prices, when you're starting like that, they're not expensive, okay? Yes, they're expensive if you hire me to go and do the Nobel Peace Prize or something. Yes, then it becomes expensive, but not otherwise.
When I win it, I'll call you, I promise.
Okay.
Hey, Alan.
You've been promising for years. Gosh, you're a rich man. I could have made you very rich. No, I'm kidding. Little light humor there.
Dan, with PRI Magazine or with other publications that you now deal with, is there a certain format that you recommend? We have things have changed a lot with online.
I don't. To be honest about it, I find my job, oh Lord, this is difficult, but okay. So if I'm talking to Dan, okay, and I want to get a story in, I will find out, if I can talk to Dan long enough, I can keep him on the phone, is what's he interested in? What does he want to do? I'm not going to sell him something straight out of the side. It doesn't make any difference. Okay, Dan, what are you looking for? What can I do? How can I help? And he'll say, well, on the August edition or something like this, we're going to be doing this, that, and the other, off-road, whatever it might be. Or we're covering PRI convention in Indianapolis. The fact is, you have to find out where he's going, and you can't. He's right about the editorial calendar. I've never done it that way. I prefer to get on the phone and just talk and find out where he'd like to go.
Well, let's go straight to him and ask this. Dan, when you were with PRI Magazine, what did you look for? What caught your attention?
Yeah, so I got 2 answers for that. First of all, Stuart, I think you missed an opportunity with me, because I did work with you at PRI, and yes. I don't think you know this, but I grew up around boxing. So you having rep Muhammad Ali, that would have been an instant in, and we would have been very fast friends if you had realized that I knew boxing. So I feel like we may have been, 2 ships passing in the night on that one. But no,
mind you, he was terribly nice, but Don King, his promoter, has done 11 years for murder. I mean, seriously.
Nightmare.
Boxing could be quite terrifying. A very quick story, if we have time on this, Alex.
Not yet. Let's save the story to the end, just in case. Let's find out what PRI Magazine wants first. But we got 100 racers on the call. How do we help get them publicity? That's what we want to talk about.
Okay, so really quick though, just to backtrack 1/2 second on what Stuart was saying about the press releases. I was doing a panel at the SEMA show a couple years ago, and it was about this topic, and it was about press releases, and it was about how to get noticed and what to do. And we had a gentleman stand up and say, listen, I'm not a great writer. I don't have anybody on staff who is, but I'm really good on video. I'm really good on camera. Is there another option? And we said, yeah, go make a video, make a short video, and send in that, submit that. Find the medium that you're really good at. If you don't have a writer, or you don't, reach out to me or Stuart or somebody who does this, for a living, and we can help you, of course. But if you're really bootstrapping it, and you're not a great writer, but you can do a camera and you can do it that way. I mean, it's different. Send it to somebody, or send it out, push it out, and they'll watch it. Like, they're gonna 2 minutes of their time is equal to reading a press release. It's actually probably better because they don't get that many of those.
Well,
So
let me ask this then.
Yeah.
One caveat of that is some of us, myself included, are terrified of being in front of the camera. Stage fright, I think, was my biggest fear growing up. I hate it. I really don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't like it when the camera's pointed on me. I
Then
get
don't
very
do a video.
uncomfortable. And I know a lot of young racers, they win a race, they're very fast, and all of a sudden there's a camera in their face.
And they
Let's
freeze
talk
up
for a
or-
second about media training. How does somebody prepare for that initial publicity, especially if it's in video, like you're talking about?
Yeah, so there are professional media trainers who do that, who will work with racers, and they will go through. I mean, I took a day-long class at SEMA. They put certain people through media training, and they will go through and give you, and you'll do hits, and then they'll go back and look at it, and okay, you did this wrong, you did this right, do more of this, do less of this, look to the side of the camera, don't talk, say the organization, don't say I. There's all kinds of training that they give you. I'm sure that there's online courses. I'm sure that there's YouTube. I'm sure that there are resources out there that you can, but I would do that. I mean, I would, say, yeah, I mean, nobody, few people feel really, really natural with a camera in their face, but you can get better at it, and you can, you can train.
And I know, Stuart, this is something that you actually have focused on as well as the media training, starting at the basics. You groom your clients into presenting themselves well.
You have to.
What are some of the things that you've learned over the years that racers are doing wrong that they need to learn?
Okay, well, I mean, the number of phone calls I get in which I have to reply, and somebody picks up the phone and says, hello? I mean, I'm absolutely serious. Hello? And they are looking for sponsors, or they're looking for PR. No, so let's start with, my name is Bill Smith, King of the, no, so the phone goes, hi, this is Bill Smith, King of the Hammers, what can I do for you? Okay, you've sold yourself. Now they know who you are and what you are and where you are. That's a basic. It's simple things like teaching them how to hold a microphone. People hold a microphone, okay? They don't hold a microphone in front of them. They wave it all around. They point to things. So they point to people in the audience. What have you? The sound level guy is trying to keep a sound level so that he can record it properly, okay? Teach the guy how to hold a microphone. Teach him when
every 18-wheeler has an audio calibration room. I've been in many of them, and the audio calibration is very difficult when that microphone is being waved all over.
Absolutely deadly. Right. Absolutely deadly. So those are basic things. I have what I listened to today was absolutely wonderful. I thought Megan was fantastic, but very complex for a start out racer. Can I really do this? I mean, this is really complicated. Can I do this? Okay, don't. Start at the bottom if you can. Okay, and who do I want to know? And find yourself a sponsor in your local main street. Okay, take your truck, take what your ATV, your motorcycle, whatever. Park it outside and say, and walk in and talk to everybody. They can only say no. And if you made 200 calls. And just one guy or two guys say yes, hey, you're ahead of the game.
No, that's true. That's true. So, gentlemen, we have just a couple minutes left. I'm going to ask you each any last words of advice on publicity to racers seeking to create value for themselves or sponsors. Dan, let's start with you. Last words of advice.
Sure. Last word of advice would be the second why that I alluded to way back 20 minutes ago. Which is, why do I want coverage? You've got to ask yourself, why do I want publicity? What's my objective? Okay, that really goes into your media strategy. We talked about the whole, who's going to do it and starting local and all that good stuff. But figure out, why am I doing this? Is it for me? Is it to attract sponsors? Is it to help my current sponsors? You've got to figure out what your objective is and then go from there. It's like I said, it's too big a realm to just shotgun it. You're not going to go to a pet store and say, I want a pet. You got to have an idea of what you want. So yeah, so I would try to keep that in mind when you're entering that space.
That's a great one-liner. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that from you. You don't go to a pet store.
I think that was pretty good too. Thanks, Dan.
Stuart, you're up. Last word of advice to racers on the call.
Okay, another important thing is your reputation. And the reality is you never, ever argue with someone in the media, ever, okay? You've always got to be able to go back, okay? Whether it's 6 months or 9 months or a year, whatever it might be, you cannot afford to offend that guy because you'll never get in there. So what you have to do is make friends and make them know that you deliver, and that everything you deliver, by the way, and really most importantly, is you never lie, okay? This is really basics of what we're talking about. Don't lie, tell the truth, give him your best shot. And if you can't get him on the phone, get his secretary on the phone and introduce yourself to her and call her and talk to her. And eventually you'll get through to the editor you need to talk to.
Hey, Alex, real quick.
Yes.
There's a saying that says, don't piss off the guys that buy ink by the barrel. So
Right.
just
By ink by the barrel. Oh, that's a good one. That's another new term I heard today. I like it. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stuart. That was a great set. I learned a lot once again. And I do agree, start local. I used to do this all the time with my kids, whether they had success in sports or starting a little business. Look up Juja Socks. The local paper always printed the stories that I wrote about my own children, and they got local publicity. And what's cool now is with digital media, those printed stories from 10, 15 years ago are now also online on the websites of the local publications. So I think that's cool. It's searchable then. Now we're going to go to the next session, which is not just for racers. It's for racers and marketing directors looking to activate and diversify their portfolio, diversify their cultures, diversify their interests. And let's pull up Antron Brown and Andre Jackson. These two gentlemen do not need an introduction. I've worked with Andre for a long time. He was Paul Dolshaw's partner back at Toyota. And those sponsorship summits that we were talking about, we had a lot of good times up in Sonoma, huh? NHRA sponsor summits.
Oh, we had a ball. We had a ball.
Now we have a 3-time NHRA champion. Actually, Antron, you named this session Diversify Yourself. Is that because it's not just about racing? You got to do other things in order to get sponsors? Or do I just have to race, show up, and win to get sponsored? What do you mean when you say diversify yourself?
Alex, you hit the nail right on the head, is that you just can't be good on the racetrack or good to the finish line. You got to be just as good off the racetrack that you do on the racetrack. And I think that's been a misconception by a lot of people that I get questioned all the time. And they go, man, I need a sponsor so I can go racing. And I said, well, how hard do you want to work? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I go, well, you got to become a part of that brand, and you got to understand where they're going and where they're heading at, and how you're going to help them get there. And at the same time, when you get on the racetrack, that's the fun part, is about supporting them, getting them what they want, and putting them in the winner's circle. And you got to use your drive that you use on the racetrack just as well you use it on the racetrack. You got to use it off the racetrack to push that business or that partner to success like you do on the racetrack.
Especially today, where social media and engagements are so important. You know, a winner 20 years ago, you won a race and you showed up in magazines, you might have got a little television coverage. Today, the coverage can continue and go viral and continue to spread. And you do a really good job with that. So let's talk real quick about the different types of ways that you promote your brands and your sponsors. It's not just by showing up at a track. You also do a lot of things afterwards, appearances.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we go to conventions and stuff like that. That's the key thing. Like, people go to SEMA, PRI, stuff that nature. But also myself is that I do a lot of keynote speaking for different corporations that are not even in their industry. And people go, why? It's like, I can get support. Well, actually you get paid to do that too. Like, you become a like a sponsored speaker, if you want to say that. But the coolest part about what that does is it gets you into another realm that you can attract other people that might not be familiar with what you do on the racetrack. They heard about you, they know about you, but they don't really know you, who you are. And that's why I always tell people so important to diversify yourself, is it let people see all different aspects of you, of what you are. And man, I'm seeing it every day. You get paid to do whatever you choose to do in life now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, social media is a big part that we always talk about. Social media is right now. You don't have to wait to watch a TV show to see this commercial, that commercial. It runs 24/7 a day. And if you put up the right content, people zoom in and you multiply. And that's where you get the influencers, right? Well, now on the sponsorship side, they gauge you by how much influence you have on the people that watch you. And not just by what you put up or how many followers, but how you respond to them too. Like a lot of people don't look at all that different stuff. And I was like, I engaged where I literally, first time I used to hire an agency to do all my stuff to help me. Where we did it, it was like part-time. Well, now I've realized how crucial that is, where I have staff in-house now, full-time, starting this year, where we ramped it up each and every year to where you get to where you're helpful at to help do numerous things to tell my day-to-day story, not just about me, but about the people on my team. I want to make, because the difference of is diversifying yourself is putting like material and things out there that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? You know what I mean? Like for me, people, like some people can relate to me, but some people might relate to my guy who does the bottom end on my race car because he's got that same type of job where oil drops in his face. He comes out, he's hot, he's pissed off, and he's got to get this done, but he's still got to get it done. And people are like, I know that. I resemble that. Some people might relate to me when they see me in the gym working out because they're fitness buffs. So they key on that side of me. Some people might relate to some of the people in our front office staff that's doing all the creative side, the art side of it, where they're putting all our liveries together, like our graphics and all our stuff, like hard cards, hero cards, and all that stuff. So when you get to, I'm starting to understand, I'm like, well, I want to show the whole side of motorsports. Like, it's not just going to the racetrack. Like everything you do in the real world, you could do in motorsports. And the thing about it is, and people could see, especially racers could see and going, well, how do you get a sponsor? How do you keep a sponsor? And how do you make that happen? Well, it's easy. It's ROI. Like, what are you giving them in return? And how can they monetize it now? Not say because I got you on TV and I just won the Coca-Cola 600. No, like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to do more than that. And when you do that, I tell people this all the time, when you do of those certain things and you go back and you ask them for some things, when they go, oh, whatever you want, that means you're over delivering and you're doing your job. But when you go to them and say, hey man, I want to do this, they're like, nah, that means you ain't doing nothing for me. You need to step the game up.
Right. Well, let's do this. Let's go right to your sponsor and ask. You are, if correct me if I'm wrong here. Hey, Andre, I'm pretty sure that Antron is the longest running sponsored athlete for Toyota and NHRA. Am I correct when I say that?
Oh, absolutely correct. And there's so much to our story. We developed such a personal friendship over those years. But with when we started, it was we were just getting into the sport. And I'm gonna try to make this as brief as I can, but Antron knows he and I took to each other right away. And when I went back to my executives, to my vice president, I told him about it. I didn't tell him he was African American. I didn't tell him anything. I said, we need to come and you need to come and meet this guy. So what happened is we got lucky because Toyota, I'm gonna sound like a corporate guy now. Toyota looks for people that are going to protect the brand. And now
protect the brand.
To protect the brand. Yeah, you've heard me say that before. Antron is a natural at that. And over the years, like you just heard him say, he's ramped up, his social media, and he stayed with the times. And quite frankly, he stayed with us as much as we wanted to stay with him, because in the beginning, we couldn't pay him. We gave him like one vehicle, I think we gave him a truck or a Tundra or something. He stuck with us. So 16 years later.
How many does he have now?
He's got his own team. He's got TRD. He's got his back. A lot has happened over this. And that's not because he's African American. That's because he's awesome and promotes our brand, happens to be African American. Right. So it was a win-win-win. So that's what I'm saying, all that to say that that's how Toyota works. Toyota says, okay, who's going to protect our brand? Who's going to help sell us sell cars? And the people that show that happen to be Hispanic, women, any type of minority, even disabled, if they show they can protect our brand and our logo, oh my God, come on in. But going back to something I'm sure Paul said earlier, it takes time. It takes patience. Right. And you've heard me, Alex, on your previous podcast, what Antron said. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
You can't just walk up to a woman and say, "Hey, I need a girlfriend." And you know, you got you can't. It doesn't work like that. So
No,
we're
it
the
doesn't.
same way. It's a relationship. We got to meet, greet. We got to do stuff. Antron has done so much stuff for us without us even paying, or anything, because he wants to do it. He knows what it takes to cultivate a relationship. So it's to the point now we almost couldn't get rid of him if we wanted to. Our executives are in love with it.
Yeah,
So he ain't going nowhere, regardless. So like I said, we're very, very fortunate to have the relationship that we have.
Well, let me ask this: how did that relationship start, Andre? I want to ask your perspective from the brand. How did the relationship start? Then, Antron, I'm going to go to you from the racer 16 years ago. Yeah. How did that relationship start? How did you approach Toyota? Andre, let's start with you, the brand first.
Go first? Okay. Well, he'll tell you. So he was coming off motorcycles, and we were already partnered up with a gentleman named David Powers, who had took over the Matco car. And I think Whit Bazemore was the driver then, and Whit Bazemore got released. Antron came in. I saw him at a couple of races, and then I just went to meet him. I was by myself, and we kind of hit it off right away. We got to talking, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm looking for some partners." And you could just tell right away he was willing to work. He didn't just come with his hand out. And amazingly, Alex, you and I've talked about this. A lot of drivers make that mistake.
Yeah,
they come with their hand out. Give me. He didn't come with that. He wanted to meet. He wanted to mingle. He wanted to get to know. So I go back and I tell my vice president, my corporate manager, I'm like, you got to come meet this guy. You got to come see this guy. And for all of us, it was more or less a love at first sight type thing. We're very, very lucky because you don't have that whole thing in a cereal bowl at once. It's rare. So Antron's rare. And not only does he just smile and laugh and relate, but he puts in the work. He puts in the work and never says no. I mean, I ask him sometimes, like, man, have you slept in the last, week? The guy goes on no sleep. I don't know how he does it. So that's how I began in 2008 that was.
Wow. Antron, from your perspective, how did you approach Toyota?
It was one of those stories where, as my first year in Top Fuel rookie season, became part of Toyota family. And the deal was with David Powers Racing, and our team got sold out at the end of the year. Like, a lot of things go on. And I remember distinctly we were going to a new team owner, and we went to Mike Ashley Racing, and he bought the team out, and we're racing for them. And I was like, man, I would love to continue the relationship with Toyota. And I remember Big Dre, because he's hearing it from the bosses. He goes, well, David's out. Our partnership's over. So we're just going to end that relationship. It was great knowing you. And I was like, hold up. I'm talking about, it wasn't one phone call. You know how many people always get told no? I got told no in a very respectable way because they're moving on, and the relationship wasn't with us. It was with the team who just went under. And I was like, well, I like to continue the relationship. What we got to do? I said, tell you what, how can we just get, I said, a tow vehicle just to pull the car back? And Dre goes, man, this is all we got, AB. We can't even do that. So I let it simmer down for like 2 weeks, and I called him back again. Like, when everybody tells you shut that door, and I was like, man, I said, I want to be a part of this Toyota family, because just for the little bit that I was a part of it, I saw that once you get in, you are in, and it's family. And they're willing to help you along the way and make you move and grow and show you all these different things. So then I waited and I go, all right, I'm on third time's the charm. So I went back to Dre, and Dre goes, you know what? I'm going to call you back. Let me go talk to the powers that be. He went straight to Ed Laukus, the high up at the time of Toyota. And he goes, Ed, this kid is not quitting. He is not giving up. Like, he is being resilient. Like, he is not stopping. He is persistent. And I always tell people out there every day, if you want to win in life, you know what I mean? It's not about winning the day. It's about winning the war. And what you got to do is, anytime you get resistance, persistence beats it all the time. All you got to do is say
resistance.
Yes, it does. It's my favorite saying. I say it all the time. Persistence beats resistance every day. And then Dre came back and he goes, I'll tell you what we're going to do. The vehicle y'all guys got right now, David Powers, you ain't got to return it. we're going to try this out for a year and see what it's all about. Because they knew me, but they didn't know me. And that's the whole part, is when you represent a brand like Toyota. And the one thing that I've learned from, I was sponsored by the U.S. Army for over 6 years. So I'll know about representing brands and what it takes to do it. And when I got in, I just started letting them know who I was. Hey, you got a car show? Oh, the New York Car Show? I'll fly in and do that. Sign me up. Go in there, meet all the people on that part of the spectrum for Toyota. Oh, what? Car dealership? I'll go visit there. Then I slowly started turning all my family members into Toyotas. Started sending them to dealerships. Then friends call me about Toyotas because they see all the ones I drive. Then start showing them and calling Dre and all the powers to be so they can get a vehicle, let them hook them up at the dealership that they can go to. You know what I mean? Just for the relationship standpoint. And then you start showing that you're actually a part of the brand, because then all my kids got cars. I start buying them Toyotas. So once you start doing it, you start building the relationship, and they know that you're not just representing them because they're a sponsor of yours, but you're supporting them as much as they're supporting you. Then that's when the relationship takes off and the sky's the limit.
And using the product, and you have a reputation only for representing brands that you like and you use and that you believe in.
Well, you got to be Alex, just like you said. I'm sorry to me cut you off, but that's what I got to tell everybody, that you have to be very careful in what you do to represent, because a lot of people look for good money. For me, I will not be a good tobacco. I have a tobacco sponsor because I never used a tobacco product in my life, never smoked nothing in my life, never chewed nothing in my life. So how can I represent a company like that? You follow what I mean? And I always told this one unique story. I tell people goes, well, AB, how did you get there? Well, I got my first sponsorship when I was 12 years old. And I used to race motocross, dirt bikes. And you know how I got that sponsorship was I went to a local pizza parlor in my neighborhood, pizza shop. And I go, man, you want to sponsor me? Man, I'm looking for a $500 sponsorship. And the owner at the time told me, he goes, that's all you need? I said, no, I really need like $2,500 to pay all my entry fees for all the year. And then we got the gas money, I get the bikes and all that stuff. He goes, well, why did you ask for 500? He goes, but I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to give you just $500 so you can put my logo on your jersey. You got to do something for me. He goes, I'm never open on Mondays. So I'm going to open my pizza shop for you on a Monday. Whoever comes in this door Monday from 6 to 10 o'clock at night, I will split the money I bring in with you 50-50.
Smart.
I said, really? I invited everybody I knew. The whole neighborhood, people in my high school. Do you know, like, the most busiest night that pizza shop has ever had is ever, like, it made, like, back in the days when I was a kid, it made like $12,000. That night in that little short hour range, we brought in 10 grand. I got $5 grand worth of sponsorship for that deal. It actually paid for another dirt bike for me, because back then my dirt bikes were only $1,000, my 80. A little
That's 4
CR80.
times of what you were looking for. That's 4 times
Absolutely
what you're looking for. Wow.
But what it taught me is how to work.
Yeah.
It taught me, okay, that pizza restaurant's never open. It got money in the short term, and then plus the fact it put me all over the place in their pizza shop. And then I brought people in, and that became a routine ritual where you open up Monday nights for me once a month to get money. But it went from 50% down to, hey man, I'm gonna give you $500 for every Monday night. but it worked.
Great.
And that's what gets your mind going. You got to think like that. Like I always tell people, you got to think, if you were the sponsor, what would you want in return? You're not just going to give somebody money. You're not going to give it to them.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
that makes a lot of sense. And Andre, what do you look for in a return? And I know, so we were talking, Antoine was just mentioning about long-term and relationship. Once you're in. Japanese companies are very well known for that. I don't know if it's called, there's a word for it, karetsus, where you have a group where once you're in a company, they tend to be in for life. Looks like your sponsorships are very similar. Is that the case? It's once you're in with Toyota?
Well, I won't speak for the culture of Japanese products, but I'll speak for the culture of Toyota. Toyota, just like with our dealers, we're looking for lifelong partners. We're looking for long-term relationship, not one-night stands. So in that, our, for lack of a better word, review or interview process, if you will, we take that very seriously. And that's why I said, Antron made it easy for us because he came in the door wanting to work, his persistence, but he even after we signed him up and he started racing and he put the work in wherever we needed him, whether he had to pay for the trip or we did, whatever show, SEMA, dealership, like he was just saying, he put in the work, and he not only allowed us to get to know him, but also his work ethic. And so what happens is that starts to escalate. The VPs hear about it, and our senior executives hear about it, and they're like, hey, I want to meet this guy. And I'll tell this story, I probably shouldn't, but it shows from where we started to where we've come with Antron. It was after, I want to say, his 15 championship. We have a event called Motorsports Day where we invite all 50 of our drivers in to the headquarters and do a private signing just for the associates. Well, this particular day, maybe you remember this, he had a family vacation plan. And he was going to be, I forget where it was, in Costa Rica someplace. And we're telling our vice president, Ed Laukus, that Antron's got a car. He says, he's one of our champions. I want him here. We ended up chartering a private plane to fly down, get him for the day, bring him to the event, and take him back to his vacation. So it doesn't start that way, but that's how much he's grown with us.
Nice.
You see what I mean? Over 13, 14, 15 years. And he could have disagreed. He could have not. He could have said, hey, man, I'm with my family, blah, blah, blah. But it was a mutual, he put the relationship first. And a lot of times I'll just say this, with all 50 of our drivers, that's not always the case. We'll just say it that way. So the whole point of this is the same thing he's saying. It's you got to make it a relationship. You got to want to give and not just receive. And it's the same with us too. We give and not just receive. His time, hey, we try to, we win championship. There's all kinds of things we try to do in return for his time and his effort. But he puts in the work. That's all we ask. Oh, yeah. Just to help us sell cars. That's all we ask.
You also said at one point that, speaking on the topic of diversity, since this is a diversity session, diversity is not a goal, it's a byproduct of the way Toyota sponsors. You don't actually go out looking for different cultures or demographics. It just happens organically.
It does, and it should, Alex. And I was trying to figure out earlier a way to explain this. I was sort of getting into it earlier. A lot of companies go out and look for the diverse product and then see if it fits their brand, fits their model, fits that. Toyota does it the other way. We want somebody that's going to protect the brand, acknowledge our model, and then give them the opportunity, no matter what type of ethnicity or background they have. And we keep cognizance of that diversity marker. It's not the other way where you're looking for it and they come in and they're Hispanic, but they don't represent the brand right, or they can't speak with those types of things. Well, we go the other way. It's like, okay, let's protect Toyota first, and then you get somebody like Antron that comes along. It's like kind of like an oh shit moment. It's like, oh, we got an anomaly here. So hell yeah, we're going to give him the opportunity. He gets to know us, we get to know him. So it's very organic with us. I can't speak for all other companies, but for us, that's the way it is. Be it female, be it whatever the situation is.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Having worked with Toyota for many years as well, I've seen that. Antron, did you tell me once that NHRA has a diversity program?
No.
Somebody said NHRA and NASCAR have diversity programs. I don't know what that means, but okay,
we never had a diversity program in NHRA. I mean, you could ask any racer, and I think what happens is that our sport is very unique. Because I can't speak about NASCAR, I can't speak about other forms of motorsports. Could speak about the ones that I live in. Is that our form of racing has accessibility, and accessibility creates diversity. It's an easy, simple, easy deal where when I grew up as a kid, I bought a street bike, $2,500. My dad and uncle, they were bracket racers before I was born. They raced from the 70s all the way up through the 80s. They still bracket race to this day. So I got my kids into bracket racing. And basically you run what you run in drag racing. I remember I saw people on mopeds. I saw the jokers over there with the rotary engines when I grew up as a kid. You see the other guys over there with the roadsters. You see other guys with dragsters. You see guys with door cars. You see people from all walks of life. And And I think that's what our sport has done well, is that when you have drag strips all over the place and you can show up on a night and spend 10 or 15 bucks and you can race or drag race anything, and they're in a gambler's race, in a sportsman race, brother, it's like everything happens. Like, and that's how you get our sport so rich and diverse. Like, we never tried to get a female in drag racing. We never tried, like Shirley Muldowney was doing it from the 70s. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And you look at it, I'm talking about back in the days where it was okay to tell a woman that you belong in the kitchen. And you're like, what? You get what I mean? Like I remember those days, you know what I mean? I grew up around it. I remember watching A Heart Like a Wheel, and Shirley was like my hero. You know what I mean? And growing up around it, like Kenny Bernstein, all those different people, Donna Snake Perdome, is like, they put their spin on it in the sport and everything else. And they were like our heroes growing up. And for me, is that's what gravitated me towards drag racing, because I remember I was 10 years old and my dad took me to my first national. I've been to a drag race track since I was born, but I've never been to national events because parents weren't going to waste the money. They actually did waste the money. I was one of those kids they throw in the back trunk with the blanket over and get in for free. But needless to say, when I literally got into the racetrack, I never forget where I was able to walk up to the pits and see inside the pits. You couldn't do that anywhere else. And by me being able to do that, that gave me the ray of hope and saying, I could be here one day. I could do this one day, because I got to see it, touch it. You definitely smelled the nitro and you definitely felt it. And when I was able to do that at an early age, it showed me that I could be there. And I never forget to this day, this is the funniest deal. I leave you. I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time, but I remember my dad took me to that race when I was 10 years old. And I never forget when we pulled up, we used to gauge people by what they drove up to the racetrack in, that you shouldn't, you know, but we did. You do your race car to the racetrack, you know you was barely making it. And if it was multicolored, you know you're just paying for it, right? Then the ones that came in the open bed trailers, oh, they doing good. The guys pulling up the records, you know they had money because they had body shops or mechanic shops. People had enclosed trailer, that was big money. And I never forget, I drove up to that first national event and I saw those semi trucks. I looked at my dad, I go, Dad, what did all these jokers do? They must make some big money. They must be like bazillionaires. And my dad said, no, son, they're professionals. I said, what you mean by professionals? They go, son, they get paid to race. I looked at him. I said, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
never get my dad wrapped his arm around me, patted me on my chest, and he goes, son, you just keep on dreaming. You're going to be in that family business. My family owned a septic tank business. And he goes, we're going to keep on being number one in the number two business. So smile, son. That's how we make our living. And then when we won our first race, it was so funny. I started pro stock bike, run my race. My dad goes, I can't believe you're doing this. Check you out. And then when I won my first championship, my dad and uncle were never emotional men. We've been to funerals and everything, never cried. I won that first championship. I saw my dad and uncle cry for the first time because they said I was living their dream. And from then, people always want to know why. They go, AB, why are you always out talking to people? Why are you signing autographs? Why are you out mingling? I said, because if I don't make it as a professional racer, I got a septic tank truck that's got my name on it. And I don't want to go back. So I'll sign autographs all day long. I'll put smile, I'll kiss babies, I'll do whatever it takes. And that's where it stems from, is like, it's always different types of work, but some people take it for granted. And for me, in racing and sponsorship and in life, how many people really do this? If you truly treat people how you want to be treated, you have nothing to worry about. And that just comes down to giving somebody a little inkling of time, standing at the back rope, or a kid that comes ask you a question where you think you ain't got time, but 20 seconds is not going to kill you. Yeah. And when you do that, you will not believe how far that truly gets you in life. Because I see people from all aspects, even peers I race with, will only give people a time of day if they could do something for them.
And you started on your own with passion and persistence, not with any kind of a program. You did it because you loved it. You saw it. You smelled it. You smelled those smells. You go to the pits and NHRA and, oh my God, you walk away with sensory overload. It's perception. It's amazing. And you made it happen. You made it happen on your own. So that's really cool. And now I know that you help train other racers. You do a little bit of motorsports training as well, which thank you for that. That's, you know, we need motorsports to grow across the board. I want to jump to Andre real quick, and then we're going to cancel or conclude this session. Andre, any last words of advice for racers on the call who are seeking sponsorship? Something I didn't cover yet.
I think it's been said, you know, probably in previous session, Antron himself said the persistence, the timing, what you want to highlight is what you can bring to the table, not what you would like to have. You know, you want to come to a sponsor of any kind, our size or not, saying, hey, you know, your product there, here's how I can contribute to the success of your product, which means actually before that, know the company you're going after, know their product, know their business, they're kind of like their business model. Do as much homework as you can about the companies that you're going after. And then that way because if you can start off having an intelligent conversation, hey, I know you guys build those Camrys in Georgetown. You know what? I got a brother that works down there too, but you know, it bodes far more positive.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, when you're going in, and for that matter, credibility. So you're not just like, hey, gimme. It's like, hey, let me help you sell those.
I totally agree. Antron, last words of advice.
And well, one thing I just want to leave everybody with is that one thing about it is just always believe in yourself. And at the end of the day, always put your best foot forward. Research, plan, and more plan. And then you have to execute and just be yourself. Be the best version of yourself each and every day. And people notice it. That's why I always tell people integrity is such an important part of getting sponsorship, because when you think people are really not watching, they are watching you. So do the right thing when they're not watching you. And that's what got me in. And I always tell people, I can do what I've done. I'm a kid from Chesterfield, New Jersey, who's living the true American dream. I went from in college, internship on a professional race team, to racing a pro stock motorcycle for 10 years and racing for one of the biggest sponsors of all, the U.S. Army, then catapulting and being a part of the biggest companies in the world globally, like Toyota, with Matco Tools and companies like that. What I always challenge people to do is that when you go out there and you want those types of things, it's just you can never stop. I went from riding to driving a top fuel car, never thought that I could even make it there, to not just driving, to being a world champion. But the world champion wasn't the biggest feat of my life. You want to get real uncomfortable, owning your own team. And I transferred and actually started my own team in 2022 and went out on the limb and did it on my own and put all my eggs in it. Like, here we go. If it doesn't work, there's a lot on the table that can get lost. But the thing about it is, I tell people this all the time. If you truly believe in yourself, what can go wrong? You give it all you got and you leave it all on the table. And I love the decision that I made for my family. And that's the one thing I want to leave back. What's your legacy you're going to leave behind? What do you want people to remember you by? And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to cultivate the next racer of tomorrow in every way that I can.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know all the racers on the call do too. And I'm an Army brat. My dad is career military and he was here helping out earlier. He had to go. So thank you for representing the Army and all of those who are in the military. Thank you for your service. That's very deep to my heart. Andre, Antron, thank you so much for taking time on a Saturday to help racers on the call and marketing directors on the call understand what brands want from sponsorship. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of kind of on the same realm as diversity, we're going to go into youth. Let's queue up Kevin Miller. Who do we have here? Ryan Jernecka and Frankie Mossman. We're going to talk about youth sponsorships and activations, because, you know, everything starts, or a lot of these racers start when they're very young, and it's usually the parents that are pushing it. Sometimes it's the racer himself or herself, depending on the age, but often it's the parents that are sort of pushing it. Kevin, USAC does a lot with youth and a lot with different series. Let's talk real quick what your experience has been with youth activations and sponsorships. You're the CEO of USAC. You and I can talk for hours on this topic, and you've developed many racers, you know, and you've led some into IndyCar, and, you know, let's just start. we have a young Formula 4 racer who's now USF Pro 2000 on as well, who I just met recently, been very impressed by. That's why we have Frankie on. And I know that Frankie's racing in a series that USAC sanctions. Let's talk real quick about what USAC can do to help racers.
Well, obviously, we have tons and tons of different race series with youth focus in it, but probably none stronger than our NASCAR youth series.
I fucking took them or not.
All right, someone has to mute your microphone, please.
But the NASCAR youth series that we have, it starts at age 5, and there are about 3,000 families around the country, 60 different member clubs. And what I noticed, we've had that series now for since 2008. It's a long time. Seen a lot of parents, a lot of kids cycle in through. But guys like Harrison Burton, Alex Bowman, Carson Hosteper, Justin Allgaier, I mean, guys that were young kids that are now racing in NASCAR Cup. And in fact, there's a new one, Jesse Love, who will be in Xfinity full-time next year. And there's a common denominator that happens that I've seen, because it's not just what's on the track and the performance on the track, but it's more important, equally as important, what they're doing off the track. And what I've seen over these last 12 years or so is just a world of marketing centered around the young racer. Probably the best example is Jesse Love. Jesse Love is a quarter midget racer, won championships, went on to ARCA, went into midgets, went into truck, now next year full-time ride in Xfinity. But what I noticed with Jesse at age 12, and that's when it first dawned on me, there was formal press releases, marketing campaigns, social media campaigns, an incredible job. In fact, I remember when that first press release came out when he was 12, I thought, wow, there's a machine behind this kid, because I'm a marketing guy, and I noticed that. And now, entering 2024, and he's got a full-time Xfinity ride. I go back, I don't know how old he is now, 18 or 19, but I go back to that 12-year-old time frame when he was a quarter midget kid to us. And I just remember that spark. And I watched that spark through all those years. It was common. And I thought, what a great marketing machine built around this kid to help propel him along in his career. And sure enough, he's out there. Carson Hostevar, another one, full-time Cup guy. Carson won many championships with USAC. I think 14 or 17, a lot, as a young kid. His parents traveled around the country to races all over the place to put him in that position. He was good on the track, but equally that campaign around him outside of the track. I know that his marketing machine touts how many championships he has with USAC numerous times. So to me, there's that very strong flavor that happens when the parents are actively involved with the career and developing that career. Along with that, I know Frankie will talk about this, I see weekly people on social media looking for small partnerships, having a numbers game on social media for people to pick numbers for $10 for squares to help buy tires for that weekend. And those little things,
I like that.
Those little things go a long way, because not only you're earning, it was like $10 a square for trying to get a couple $100 for tires. Not only are you getting the $200, which is probably minute in that weekend expenses, but you're getting breadth of your voice out there to small businesses who may give you $10 here and $10 there. But as you move up in a midget and the costs get higher, it may be $1,000 here, $1,000 there. So those little things that connect, and again, I'm looking at it at the youngest ages we have. It only gets enhanced as you move along the ranks into the midget series and the off-road series. There's so many kids out there today racing. There's so many parents that want them to be Tony Stewart. And that's our running joke internally is, we see that, but the activity and the level of commitment it takes today, starting at a young age, it's pretty impressive. Another example of that is we just last year, 2023, we had a program called the Fab Four, which recognized 4 females in USAC racing. It was pretty successful. Actually, one of our most successful marketing campaigns we did from a social media aspect. So we just announced that we're going to roll that into 2024 into our quarter midget program to identify 4 young females in quarter midget racing. The catch is this: there'll be performance on the track that we look at, but these 4 females will be recognized for their off the track performance equally as well. And that we've already had 130 applications come in for that program for 2024, just for our quarter midget series. So one, we're thrilled that there's 125 females, young girls in our quarter midget program, but that shows you the passion that they're applying. It's January. We just announced this a couple weeks ago. You know, it's early January. We don't start racing until March, and we already see that activity happening. So it will be very interesting to watch that support around the young racers by the family that will propel them into the marketing stage for this Fab Four program. So it'll be interesting to watch this year.
So it's about a lot more than just on-track performance. It's the off-track performance, the marketing, the support, the publicity.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times that's not done by the young racer, it's done by the family, but you know, it then progresses to the young racer. And then as Antron said, it goes to a whole team of people who conduct that, you know, as they advance in their career. Let's go to Frankie real quick. Frankie Mossman.
Hi guys.
There he is.
Yeah.
Frankie, you're there? Yeah, there he is. Frankie, how old are you?
I'm 17. So
and how long you been racing?
This is my 10th year right now. I started when I was 7 back in 2014. So this is probably going to be one of my most special and hopefully most successful. So we'll see.
And then you raced F4 last year?
Yeah, I did F4. Started with that, start of the season. Moved up to a series called USF Pro 2000, which is on the road to IndyCar, and hopefully get a chance to finally get a break and make it to my dream, which is IndyCar.
And then how did you get there as a 7-year-old? How did you get to, or a 17-year-old? How do you get to get sponsors? I see that you're sporting Ethica cap there. Is Ethica one of your sponsors?
Yeah, Ethica is one of my main sponsors. I've big brands like that. I've a jewelry company that backs me up as well. And these are just companies that I used every day. And I wanted to try to get myself involved with, and took the time out of my day and made it a full-time job to make sure it's and stay committed and do what I love, and try to just make it possible in general. So
how did you get Ethica? That's a cool brand. That's a youth brand. It's an action sports brand. It's a brand that we don't often see yet in motorsports. How did you get
it's there's only 3 racers that they really have in motorsports, which is Noah Gragson, Nemechek, and then myself. And so it was special to be included in that line of drivers because they're very talented as well. And so I got the opportunity. I sent an email out. I've done that every single day. I send 5 emails out. And eventually my dad found a connection with them, got an introduction, and then eventually went there, started working out with their personal trainer, got more included, got product, and then started getting featured by them through their social media and getting more exposure that way as well.
So Ethica gives you access to their gym. Is that what I just heard?
Yes. And so facility usage is probably the biggest part of it for me. And because, I mean, you're just taking more money out of the budget when you're paying for a gym membership, and all of this just starts to collect together over the end of the season. And so even though it doesn't look like it's money that they're offering me, it definitely does help in any sort of way.
And then you also said you send out 5 emails per day.
Yeah, that's my main goal.
What do those emails look like? What do you send? Do you send those, or do your parents send those? How are they crafted? Is it the same?
Started a lot. The cold emails, I mean, I definitely look for companies in the areas that I'm going to be racing at over my schedule. I have a full sponsorship deck that I try to make a little bit more inclusive to who I'm sending it to and make it more understanding. And then I send a personalized email as well, just so they get the introduction. And if they want to check out the deck, they can. Just something I don't like just sending a plain copy and paste to everyone, because at that point, then you're not going to get any responses. So there's a lot of no's. I mean, it mostly is no's, but the small yeses, it definitely does make it worth it. And so that's the only thing that you kind of have to look forward to when you're trying to do that, because I mean, you can't really be disappointed because it works out eventually.
Where did you start in racing? How did you start out? Most young racers I know start with go-karts. Was yours the same?
I was the same way. I started out with go-karts. I'm out of California, so it was a little bit smaller during the time that I started in karting. And so eventually did that, went nationally, went international, and came back to the US, raced for a long while. And then eventually I got the opportunity to move up into F4. And then after that, it's just been a uphill, just line of opportunity ever since.
Right on. Well, speaking of go-karts, that's going to be my segue over to Ryan Jernek at K1 Speed. He's marketing specialist with K1 Speed. Ryan, how are you? Now, I know K1 develops young racers. Talk to me about the driver development program that you have. You're muted, Ryan. Sorry. You're muted. George, you might have to say ask to unmute. Okay. Do you know sign language? We could do that too.
Thank you for the help there. You hear me now, right?
I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, perfect. So sorry about that. But yeah, K1's a little different. Unfortunately, we don't offer direct sponsorships right now for up and coming racers, but definitely what we do offer is an affordable way to get started in a racing and to start kind of honing your craft and maybe give yourself some experience that would otherwise cost thousands and thousands of dollars if you're to try to do it through an outdoor karting avenue, right? So for instance, it all starts with our arrive and drive experience. That's only $30 or so to go out there, get on the track, get a helmet on. This is something totally different than mini golf karting or those little family fun centers. It's actually, you're racing against the clock, and it's pretty professional. These karts are pretty quick for juniors. They go up to 25 miles per hour, and the torque's pretty heavy too because they're all electric. So it's a great way for them to at least dip their toes in the water and see whether or not, first of all, if they enjoy racing, right? And before you plunk down on the money. And then second of all, whether or not they're any good. And with the arrive and drive racing, they're just going to be pitted up against casual kids that are just coming there for a good time. Now, if they beat them, or if the kid's really enjoying it and wants to get more serious, then we offer our monthly leagues. This is a 12-month series. The buy-in is only $50 every event, and it's non-committal. You can choose to do as many as you want throughout the year. Now, the advantage of staying the whole year is when you're competing against all the kids from your local center, you're racking up points throughout the year. And at the end of that year, the top 3 racers actually move on to a state championship. Now, in the state championship, those top 3s from every center of K1 Speed in that state are competing against each other in one place. The competition really ramps up. And from there, if they make it to the top 3, they actually go to a national level. And from there, they're competing against the top 3 from this year. We're going to have 20 states, so 60 kids from all over the country are going to be competing against each other. And again, it's another good test for your child, see how well they do. From that point on, they move on to a world championship if they finish in the top 3 of the nationals. And they're actually then competing against kids from Puerto Rico that have a K1 Speed location. Canada's got some K1 Speed locations. Mexico.
How many
France.
K1 Speed locations are there? How many locations are there?
Over 80 right now. We've got 83 right now in 7 different countries, and we kind of include Puerto Rico, even though, yes, it's a U.S. territory, but we call it the 7th. So we're all over the place, and we are rapidly growing and growing internationally as well. So it's only getting bigger and bigger. So, I think what we really provide is that kind of elevated level of competition for a very small amount of money. And I think it's something too, where if you are somebody that's relying on getting a lot of money to just get that seat time and just get that experience to be able to say, hey, look, my kid's good when you're proposing yourself to a company. I think K1 Speed's got some clout, actually, given that high level of competition that we do have. That's a luxury of us being as big of a go-karting company as we are.
Well, it's really cool to have an arrive and drive program that parents can put their kids into before actually making the huge investment. And as we all know, motorsports is very expensive. So investment in a team is a very big expense. And the arrive and drive just makes it easy. Then you can see if the kid has a passion for it.
Exactly. And again, as I was talking about, seat time is really, one of the biggest ways that you can start getting faster out there on the track. And having a low price point, I think, really helps. And, it's helped some people that have even made it far. Well, first of all, in the junior league that I was talking about, Patrick Long, the Porsche factory driver, was taking his kid out there. They attended about half the events at our Thousand Oaks location. And again, he's just trying to get his kid involved into it, learn the skills. We had a kid that competed in K1 Speed Austin about 10, 15 years ago. Well, he's now in British GP3, which is formerly their F3 championship. he just finished 4th in the championship last year, and it all started at K1. So, it's a great affordable way without having to ask too much, on a parent's wallet. And if it is too much for a parent's wallet, maybe this is an affordable option to start making a relationship with the company and say, listen, I need $600 to participate in the whole series this year. Can you do that? And let's maybe start the conversation that way.
Right on. Well, thank you. Kevin, you were head of Mopar for a while, and you saw a lot of young racers work their way up. When you were with Mopar, how did you select a young driver for the brand?
A very, very interesting conversation. So at Mopar, we had a significant budget for motorsports. We built the entire brand around motorsports, obviously. And in 2002, we took all of our television branding money, a very significant amount of budget, and redistributed it into grassroots racing, built around Tony Stewart and his sprint car midget program, built around Sean Carlson and drifting. We really redistributed those funds. So at that moment, we would get a dozen requests every week. And I know I was talking to Frankie about this earlier. He said he sends out 5 emails a day. Cold calling is very, very difficult. And I knew this from my days at Mopar, receiving them, because how do you break out of the clutter when I'm getting 12 emails or things a week? There were a few that stuck out. I remember one that really stuck out was I received an iPad in the mail, and it had a presentation on it. But okay, that's how you break out the clutter right there. But those cold calls, most end up in the trash, because you just don't, you need that personal relationship, whether you know the person, a family member knows the person, friends of friends. The best story I can give you is this. When I was at Mopar, I recognized in drag racing that the pro stocks, which we were heavily involved in, when they left the track, or I'm sorry, when they came on the track after Top Fuel and Funny Car, a lot of fans left the stands to go in the pits. And so I thought, wow, we really need to be in a fuel category, Top Fuel, Funny Car. And I happened to meet Gary Selzy in the back of Tony Stewart's sprint car hauler one night. And in a conversation, decided that night, Gary's our guy. And we decided we're going to have a Top Fuel program with Gary Selzy. And Gary and I talked that night about who should own the car. So this is literally a 4-beer, maybe a 6-beer conversation, but who should own the car? And it came down to Kenny Bernstein, Tony Stewart, or Don Schumacher. And over another course of a few beers, another few days, and some tequila with Jim Gennard of Oakley, we sat down and talked about who should own the car. These are all conversations happening without the driver, without the car owner, but how do we take $2 million and decide how to build a cool team? And Jim Gennard of Oakley and I sat down and we called Don Schumacher after discussing.
Jim is the founder of Oakley, for those people who don't know. Jim is the founder. And
so we sat down, and again, over a few beers, called Don Schumacher and said, how would you like to own a funny car team? We have $2 million. And of course, the answer was hell yes. But that phone call could have went to Tony Stewart. It could have went to Kenny Bernstein. They may not even know it. We did talk to Tony and said, what would you think about owning a drag team? This is 2004. And he's like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. But we didn't go that direction when we won a championship the very next year. So I think those things are very, very important. On the flip side, being at Mopar or at USAC, now I'm in a position where I'm going out trying to get sponsors, right? And those cold calls are almost impossible for me. The level we're looking at, it's very difficult to explain USAC to somebody. It's easier to almost explain a team or one series, but when you're talking about an organization that has multiple series, it is tough. I did want to point out Kylie Glick is on. I noticed her. She's a former quarter midget person. And when I was talking about Jessie Love, she's actually in that exact same spot Jessie was at 13 years old. Successful racer, trying to move up the ranks with a family that markets around her. And just knowing that you're on here watching this and spending that time researching, that's what it takes to break out, to understand, to get that one little caveat of what could I do differently? And knowing that guys like Frankie send 5 emails a day, which is hell, I wish I had that in my life. I had the energy to do 5 emails a day cold calling, because there's a lot of disappointment in that. But there's probably enough to keep it going. And for Frankie to get a brand, and Frankie, you should talk about how you got them, because that local connection, I think, was important. Even though he may not know the people, that local connection. So finding a small connection with somebody is critical in achieving a sponsorship today. Cold calling, very difficult, but trying to find that angle is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let's do that. Let's go to Frankie and let's talk about the local connection. Frankie,
Yeah,
Ethica's
definitely my angle
local,
was-
you're in Orange County. What do you
I'm in
do
Orange
for them?
County.
Go ahead.
They were out of Lake Forest, so it's only about 15 minutes. So once I got that introduction, got the tour around Ethica and everything, and got introduced to their trainer, that was kind of my angle, was to get that connection through him. And when I was on my tour, I just tried to speak to as many people as I could. And what I ended up doing was I ended up meeting their marketing director and having a long conversation with him and Ryan Scheckler, and which are 2 very big people that are important.
Ryan Scheckler is a very famous skateboarder, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, they're very, very, very important over there. And so it was a pretty luck-based thing. But I think if you're outgoing and have the ambition, and just, I mean, if somebody says no or they're just not interested, it's just how it is. It's going to happen a long time. And I've seen it with my dad. He's a salesman. And so I already know how that works. I've dealt with it. I went door to door for a long time as well. In my local hometown, I handed out flyers. I worked with small businesses to try to get money for tires. And there was a lot of people that said they just couldn't. Dry cleaners sometimes can't give you $300, even though that seems minute to a racing standpoint, but some businesses just can't. And some of them just aren't, they don't see the beneficial, like the return on their investment with that as well. And so you have to be outgoing and take all the chances you can get. And so sometimes it'll just pay off. I mean, I have a whole box of product over there that I'm lucky to have. And I was just talking to them today, and I said, I'm thankful that they gave me the opportunity. Same with them and another jewelry brand as well. I was speaking with them, and we're the only 2 that said yes to me. So it's really special because the yeses mean a lot more than the nos, obviously. And so that's the only way that I make it through the disappointment. And the cold calls, it's not that hard to deal with as well.
There are a lot more no's than yeses. We're all
Yeah.
used to that. And the longer you're doing it, I've been doing it about 20 years now. The no's, they don't even bother you anymore because you're so used to them. Frankie, real quick, let's do last words of advice. Go Frankie, Ryan, and then end with Kevin. Frankie, what last words of advice you have for young racers on the call who are trying to get sponsored, but they're maybe so new to racing that they don't even know how to approach it. They don't have a brand name for themselves yet. Sponsors don't recognize who they are. What do you think works? What worked for you?
I mean, what worked for me is like how I talked about going door to door, making flyers, speaking with friends and family. If they can contribute a little bit, that's your help. Getting photos definitely at a track. You definitely do need to have a little bit of a representation, so just so people can understand what you're going through and where you're trying to go. You need to have a long-term goal, and so just as long as they feel included. Also, I spoke about I with those photos, I would have them major printed big posters, and I would give those to the people that gave me money. Sometimes, I mean, you wouldn't make anything off of what they gave you, but at least they feel like they got something in return. So that was the biggest part of it. And so that's my major advice. It's a full-time job, and you're off track. You have to be working in the pits all the time. You have to be speaking to people, be outgoing, and just talk to everyone that you can.
That's what Kevin was saying. Off-track performance is just as important as on-track performance. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you for taking time today. Ryan, and so we're going to have one of your colleagues, JR Tweed from K1 Race Gear on for sponsor speed dating after the break. But from a K1 speed perspective, last words of advice of young racers seeking sponsorship? How can K1 Speed help other than what we've already said?
Well, again, I think we do give them the opportunity to kind of demonstrate what they are capable of doing, especially on track, right? I mean, keep in mind that the nice thing about K1 Speed is that everyone's in the same cart. I know in professional karting sometimes the budget can make a big difference between drivers. With K1 Speed, they're all equal. Everyone's paying the same amount going in there. They all have the same opportunity. So if you're able to not only beat people at your local center, but then go on like in a world championship and go on at a state level, a national level, and a world level, I think that's going to speak volumes on their CV, honestly, because I mean, where else are you having that kind of level of competition at again, such a low buy-in? So I would say, if you can cut it at K1, you're probably going to transition pretty well to something more serious like outdoor kart racing and moving forward from there.
Cool. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much.
Kevin, I know that I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't USAC help Kyle Larson get to IndyCar? No, you're muted now. Whoops.
The answer is we actually know we didn't help him. We tried. Even though he'll be in the Indy 500 this year, when Kyle was young and racing midgets in California, we have the luxury of seeing raw talent evolve. Kyle was one of those special raw talents at a very young age that we would go over to IndyCar. They're next door neighbors to us. And Randy Bernard was the head of IndyCar. And we really tried serving Kyle up on a silver platter to IndyCar, saying, this is somebody you need in your paddock. It didn't work. He went to NASCAR. Chip Ganassi took a gamble on him. Kyle he wasn't somebody with a lot of money behind him, and that's unfortunately probably didn't take him to IndyCar originally. Fortunately, he's going to have his dream and run the Indy 500 this year, so we'll be rooting him on. But Antron Brown said something when he was finishing up, and he said, people are always going to be watching you. And you have to understand that when you're representing brands. And this is about youth, about sponsorships. We talked about how important it is on and off the track. As a young person, it's hard. This is a very hard message. You have to control your parents. Parents have to control themselves.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest barrier from somebody achieving greatness is the parents get in the way because they're too overprotective, they're too overzealous, and that interferes with that child's ability to really grow up. Again, it's not as much on track at that age as it is off track. Kylie and Frankie, these are different type of individuals who are putting themselves and understand that mix, and that passion and what it takes at that age to break out from the clutter. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to break out from the clutter. We have 3,000 Quartermage kids. I can tell you a handful of names, and there's a reason for that, because the package they presented individually on the track, they win. More importantly, off the track, and their demeanor, that's all part of the package and growing up and putting yourself in a position to get further along. There's a lot of parents with money. There's a lot of parents that want their kids to be Tony Stewart, but there's only a few out there that break through and achieve that. And it's the TikToks and what you're putting on TikTok when you're 13 that will represent you when you're 18.
Off track is as important as on track. I agree with that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time today. Thank you. Have a good weekend. And
thank you,
all those rides at K1. So our next session is now motorsports marketing across multiple brands and multiple distribution channels. We got the big dogs on now. We have Al Rondon from Coca-Cola. Where is Tony Merritt from Stanley Black & Decker? And just, I can't name all the brands off the top of my head, so I wrote them down. Al, correct me if I'm wrong. Coca-Cola, we have Smart Water, Minute Maid, Coca-Cola, Mellow Yellow, Powerade, Body Armor, Sprite, Fanta, Dasani, the list goes on.
There's over 200 brands, Alex, so I wouldn't
certainly don't think we have
enough time to go through all of them. Yeah.
Right on. And then Tony, same thing, Stanley Black & Decker. For those of you who don't know, that's Craftsman, DeWalt, Mac Tools, obviously Stanley, obviously Black & Decker, Boss Stitch, Porter Cable. I know there's many more. Look at that cool office you got too. Holy moly.
Tony, how you doing, Alex?
There he is. Right on. Hey, so this
I
session,
can you hear me?
Yes, I got you now. There was a little delay on my end.
Okay.
So this is a new session. I'm trying something new with this summit. This session is not just for racers seeking sponsorship, but it's for marketing directors looking to understand how to market their brands through motorsports. I've been told many times that these summits are just as valuable for marketing directors as they are for racers. So this session is designed for the marketing director that wants to copy Coca-Cola and SB&D, but they don't know what to do yet. They're not sure how to allocate sponsorships across different brands, different companies, different names, different logos. So we're going to talk about that. I wanted to know, first, I know you have 200 brands, Al. How do you decide what brand goes with what motorsports? That's got to be a taxing decision.
Yeah. So the good thing is I don't have to decide that. The brands, the brand leaders, the brand managers, they're the ones that decide what are the passions that their target consumer are over-indexing. And so that is where the decisions are made, either to go into motorsports because they know that their target consumer or their heavy user consumer is that's a passion of theirs. Maybe music, it may be football, maybe gaming. And so it really all comes down from the brand. And while I don't decide what sponsorships, I want to at least put that out there that I am not a decision maker on this.
Don't call Al, don't bother him with LinkedIn.
Yes, yeah. What we do is we manage it. So once the brand decides that motorsports is a passion point for their target consumer, then we will then negotiate and manage that partnership. So that is, as you and I know, is something that is a complete job. It's not only working with the leagues, but with drivers, with tracks. So it's quite a big role that we fill. But to answer your question, it's really the brand that is in charge, and they decide if a sport is something that they want to activate in.
So the racers should target the different brands. I'm going to tell a real quick story. It was about, I don't know, it was a decade ago. You and I were in 29 Palms, California, way in the middle of nowhere, just having toured Joshua Tree National Park. And you were wearing mellow yellow at the time. And a local came up and said, "Are you guys going to the drag races?" He saw your logo and he instantly associated that with drag racing.
Right.
That's effectiveness. That's pretty cool.
But that doesn't happen with just putting a logo on a car. That happens with being at the track, activating your brands at the track, activating your brands in the store, activating on all the media channels that you can. So it at the point that you and I were in there, Mellow Yellow had been the series sponsor for a number of years, and we had done quite a bit around that to bring that association of Mellow Yellow and racing. They had it from the days of Thunder and Kyle Petty and his car. So that was a really great way for us to bring it into the sport of drag racing.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's head over to Tony real quick. Tony, you have several brands. Some are functional brands, some are brands for technicians, some are consumer brands. How do you determine what motorsport series each brand fits in? What the best way to market is?
Yeah, I think, my internet's kind of unstable. We're like 8 degrees today, so if I'm slow, let me know. But it's kind of the same way as Al said. It all comes back to the brand team and what that target audience that you're trying to get to. Now, most of our brands are professional brands. DeWalt's targeting that professional. Mac Tools targeting that professional. Craftsman's kind of I don't want to say it's a do-it-yourselfer, but it's still a really good brand, but it's got a different demographic that they're trying to approach also. So each one's different ages, each one's different, whether it's a pro or a do-it-yourselfer. But one cool thing about us is, most of our tools are integrated into the sports. So, it's just not a brand like, Al was saying on a car. Our brands are actually being used in the garage, in the pits, in the trailers. So we're kind of integrated into motorsports. And kind of different than, we're in a lot of soccer too. We've been in college football. But motorsports is where we have found to really target, that demographic that we're looking for, which whatever brand we've got.
Do you prefer, so you mentioned other series. Now, obviously you have some consumer brands, so soccer and other sports make a lot of sense. Do you prefer to sponsor series or do you prefer to sponsor teams?
That's a great question because we have both. We have Craftsman with the Craftsman Truck Series. Craftsman was with the Truck Series early on. They was the first sponsor to be there. They kind of stepped away from that when they was having trouble. Then we kind of acquired them and we brought them back in 2023. And that's been a great platform for us for that Craftsman brand. There's not the retailer that it used to sell at is not there anymore. So we brought it into some new retailers and we're using that Truck Series to drive that consumer from awareness to consideration to actually purchase and driving them to a certain retailer. If you watch Truck Series, you'll see the deal of the race. And you scan the QR code and that QR code is going to take you to a landing page and it's going to take you to one of our retailers. So we do love series, but we also love teams. We think about FC Barcelona, the most loved football team in the world, like almost 400 million fans. And so we love to have.
Could be Bayern München, by the way. Bayern München's quite loved as well. That's where I was born. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I get it. But so yeah, we love teams. We've had a relationship with Joe Gibbs Racing since they opened the doors. We've been with Hendrick Motorsports since they've opened the doors. Doug Coletta getting his first championship last year. We've been with Dougie for his 26 years. So we love teams, but we also love series too.
26 years. Wow, that's a long-running sponsorship. That's one of the longest I've heard. I know Rob Mack has 30. 26 is right up there with it. Al, how about you? Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola's brands, do they prefer to sponsor individuals or athletes or series sanctioning bodies, promoters?
I think it really depends on the sport. In NHRA, we were the series sponsor, and that allowed us to have access to all the drivers. So that model worked for NHRA. In NASCAR, we're both the premier partner of the NASCAR Cup Series, but we also have the Coca-Cola Racing family, which is now in its 26th year, where we've have the drivers. And in the sport of NASCAR, the drivers are the heroes, right? You've ever been to a NASCAR race? It's the drivers that all the fans are wearing, right? They follow their driver. So it's unique, much like Tony and Mac. We're also involved in soccer, where we're the series sponsor. We have some teams that we sponsor individually, and then we also pull out some players. So it really depends. I wouldn't say there's one approach that the company uses with regards to series or teams.
Is it a fair assumption to make that for Coca-Cola, sampling is important?
Yeah, I think for any brand and any consumer packaged good, you want the fan to try it. You want them to engage with it. They're more likely to purchase a product once they've tasted. If you've ever been to a Costco and you walk around and you see the money that they spend in sampling, I'm guilty as charged. I'll buy it, right? If I like it, I'll try it. So that is certainly some of the things that we think about when we are there. We want our brands to be associated with the sport. So if they're driving home after a great day at the races, and they've got our brands in their cup holder and they're enjoying it, there's an association. There's that connection that we look to drive with our fans.
Yeah, and
So
I
it's-
think
Go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say, I think that fan loyalty, that's a big piece too. I mean, I do it myself. I use Old Spice. I never thought I'd use Old Spice, but they sponsor sports, so I'm supporting them. Hopefully, people are buying DeWalt and Craftsman and Mac because we are supporting the sport that they love to follow. Now, it might not be their favorite driver, but hopefully they're supporting the sports because we're supporting what they love to watch.
And I'm assuming it's the same with you, as you're probably not in need of exposure. There's probably a lot of other things that you're doing, the reasons why you're marketing through Motorsports, but Coca-Cola is the most visible brand in the world and everybody knows DeWalt. You probably don't need exposure. What is it that you're looking for from sponsoring Motorsports?
I mean, I think exposure, and I'm kind of an old school guy, I've been around a long time. So, and I still believe in exposure. A lot of new CMOs coming into the business don't, but I still think there has to be an element of exposure with anything that you do. You want to be seen. But I think the other things, whether it's IP rights, whether it's customer engagement. So, we do a lot of, with our Coletta program and our Mac Tool program, it's a pit side hospitality. So they can watch our tools in action. When you go to the Daytona 500, you'll see a huge Craftsman display there. I don't know if you all remember the Rolling Thunder, but it used to roll to the NASCAR races where you actually got to use our tools at the race, our DeWalt tools. So it's activation. You look at it like I use the analogy, you got this Ferrari sitting in the garage, you've got to have activation money to put gas in it. So when you have that NASCAR program or that drag racing program or whatever that may be, you've got to have activation dollars to activate it so people can touch, feel, and see your product out at the races, not only on TV or on social, but at the races or at a sporting event, a baseball game, a soccer event, whatever that may be.
So you're a manufacturer. Do you work with your distributors or jobbers or retailers to market? And I think you told me once that on pit lane, you like to put certain customers, let them sit on the box. Let's talk about that for a second. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we do a couple examples would be our DeWalt program. So we're the primary sponsor. DeWalt is of the number 20, the Christopher Bell drives. And what we have called an EUL program. It's an end user logo program. So we'll go into a market, we'll take a customer's logo and we'll put it on the hood pins of the car, the deck lid of the car. We'll bring that customer in, VIP tours, meet and greets, sit on the pit box, stand beside Christopher Bell on the grid during the national anthem to give them that, experience that they, that our competitors can't offer them. So yeah, we do that there with our Mac Tools program. We give the opportunity to our franchisees in those areas to display at an NHRA race, to sell product. So yeah, I mean, those franchisees, those customers, they're the ones footing the bill for us to promote these brands. So yes, we try to involve them in any way that we possibly can, Alex.
So same thing to Al. Does Coke work with distributors, retailers?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And much like Tony, we try to build more advocates for the sport wherever we go. We have a network of independent bottlers in the U.S. They're the ones that distribute our brands. They manufacture and distribute it. They work through customers because we don't sell directly to the consumer. It's done through grocery stores, through our convenience retail channels, things of that nature. So we do the same thing. We try to bring some of our executives, our decision makers, we bring them into the sport. We have them sit on the pit box. We take them into the garage. We want to have more and more advocates for the sport to understand why we're involved in it, because the company is involved in so many different things and it could be easily lost. Well, we try to bring those guys in. Same thing with the customers who distribute or sell our brands. We want them to think about our brands first and foremost, especially when they know they're in a NASCAR market or an NHRA market. We want them to experience what the fan experiences and why they love the brands that they love. So all the tools that we do of engaging those guys, yeah, it's to build more advocacy, more ambassadors for our brands out in the world.
And it also associates the brand with a good time, because people tend to remember brands when they're having fun, and they also remember brands when they're not having fun. So by associating yourself in an environment where people walk away really feeling good, your brand is part of that, and your brand is making it fun. Can you give me an example of some successful activations through motorsport sponsorships? Al, why don't we start with you, since you were just on?
Yeah,
Obviously,
I
we
think
talked about Mellow Yellow earlier. That was a really good one back in the day.
Yeah, we've had a number of brands in the portfolio, such as Body Armor. They're on the number 12 car with them. They sponsor Ryan Blaney. We did a program. So Minute Maid, which is one of our brands, was looking to really do something with the Hispanic community, and they developed this brand called Minute Maid Agua Frescas, fruit enhanced water. And while it was targeting the multicultural consumer, they understood that there was a halo effect, that they could target more young Gen Z type of influencers. So influencers is what they were looking for. We have a driver that's part of the Coca-Cola racing family, Daniel Suarez. So we decided to take Minute Maid Agua Frescas and wrap his car for a race during Hispanic Heritage Month. And so we really pulled through the idea of Hispanic Heritage Month, a brand that was authentic, a driver who was authentic, and we did a whole campaign around that. And during the launch, year one, we over exceeded what the projected volume was going to be. And the brand felt so strongly about the activation that we did it again this past year in 2023. So when the brand team sees that they've tried something in a sport that they traditionally would not have thought about, but I brought them the opportunity with a driver that could connect to that brand.
Yeah.
He felt it was authentic. He talked about it authentically. And while the brand certainly succeeded in the multicultural consumer, it also exceeded in general market. So it was a true success.
And are you measuring results by sales, or are there any other metrics that you use to measure results?
There's a number of things that will measure that. It could be impressions. It could be, activations that are done on social. Certainly sales is what moves the needle. But, are people buying it again? Repeat purchase. That is kind of the true measure of a brand success. If people are going to repeat purchase.
Right on. Tony, same thing with you. Are you there? Oops.
Yeah.
There he is. What's an example of a really effective sponsorship? And then how did you measure the results from it?
Yeah, I think the biggest one we've had is our relationship with the ACE Foundation. So ACE Hardware has a philanthropic arm that's called the ACE Foundation. And for 17 years, we've ran a program, what we've called the Racing for a Miracle program. And so what we do is we move this event around the North America with Joe Gibbs Racing. And what we do is we take the car into a market. We're going to Chicago this year. It'll be our 17th year. Chicago, ACE's headquarters is in Chicago. And what we'll do is we'll do a donation of $100,000 through the ACE Foundation to CMN hospitals. If Christopher Bell wins that race, we're going to donate $1 million to CMN hospitals. We'll do a hospital visit, take C-Bell in and let him visit the kids. We will bring the kids to the track, let them be official crew members for the day, behind the scenes tours, everything else. So I think the most successful promotions is the turnkeys that's going to deliver visibility, touch on philanthropic, you're doing good, you're driving revenue, and it's kind of a circle. I mean, so that's one of our biggest. We did that last year for the first time with another huge partner, Whitecap, and done the same thing with St. Jude's Hospital. So when you can take a customer and do something for their charity, their charity of choice, it really helps build relationships, and you're doing good, you're selling product, and it's a win-win for everybody.
And that's one of the intangible values that we talk about. That's intangible. That's priceless.
Yeah, priceless.
What words of advice do you have for a young marketing director that just inherited a brand and has not yet started sponsoring or not yet started marketing, and they want to sponsor motorsports, but they don't know how? What kind of words of advice do you have for entering motorsports marketing through sponsorships?
So I get a lot of calls from people that leave our business and go into other businesses, and somehow they fall in that marketing role, and they call me and ask me the same questions. And what I tell them, first of all, you can't be a fan of the sport. I do love motorsports, but you can't be a fan of the sport. And you got to find the right team, the right person to represent your brand. You got to decide what PIs that is important to you. What do you want to get out of this relationship? And from there, you got to track it. You got to, do quarterly reports, annual reports to show that return on investment. I think that, my playbook is always a 4 to 5 return on that dollar. So 4 to 1 is what I want to see on everything. And what that's going to deliver is exposure, that's social engagement, that's revenue. All of that has to tie to deliver that 4 to 1 return on anything that we go into. And that's hard to do. That's really, really, really hard to do, especially for grassroots programs. It's just really hard to do.
Yeah, no, that's true. Al, how about you? Your advice to a young marketing director that's looking to get into motorsports sponsorships?
Well, I think whether it's a marketing director or the question that Jess posed, I think it is very, very, very similar. I think the biggest advice I could give you is find out who your target sponsor is. Do some research. Find out what it is that they're trying to achieve. What's their gap? And how can you help them fill that gap? It's got to be more than just a logo on a car, logo on a billboard. While I agree with Tony that those impressions are important, you need more than that. That's one element to move the needle. So what can your series, what can your driver, what can you do to help solve a sponsor's problem, right? And that is what I never get to hear. Everybody says, "Oh, you could, your logo would be great on my car." Okay, but you haven't asked me what my issues are.
Coca-Cola does not need exposure.
Correct, but I think it takes a lot, and it's got a lot of research, and you've got to find out, the people that are in the companies that you're looking for. Find out what it is that they're looking to achieve, and then how can you help them achieve that? So there's got to be a fit, and then how can you help them achieve that, and then how can their business benefit from being part of your sport or your driver. So it really is not just a transactional. You and I talked about this the other day. It's about a longer term partnership. You heard Tony talk about being with Joe Gibbs Racing. We're the same way. We've been with Joe Gibbs Racing since he started, and that we have a partnership. He works hard to deliver value back to the Coca-Cola company, which definitely is one of those things that helps keep that partnership going.
So a lot of what we talked about is mostly from marketing directors, but let's real quick, while you're still on, any last words of advice for racers on the call, just in sponsorships in general, does not have to be motorsports related. We have racers on the call that need money and they want to get funded. What advice do you have from your experience? And then Tony, you're next.
I think it's you got to do the research. There is no easy way around it. You've got to do the research. You got to work hard. Remember, these companies are, for the most part, for profit. They've got to answer to shareholders. They've got to answer to a number of people. And for the dollars that are being invested into whatever it is, sponsorships, machinery, they need to have a return on that investment. Okay. It's not just about funding your passion of being a driver. There's got to be more to that. Somebody posed a question about Joey Logano drinking our brands. Joey's a great ambassador. I heard earlier, Antron Brown. You think about guys like Ron Capps. These guys are great ambassadors for their sponsor. You never see Ron Capps get on a call, on an interview, and not talk about Napa, not talk about why it's important to partner with Napa. And so that, I would say, research, look at those sponsors like a Joey Logano, like a Ron Capps, Antron Brown. Look at what they do for their sponsors, and let that
Makes
be
a lot of success. Copy the success of others. Absolutely, I agree.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Sal. Tony,
Yeah.
last words of advice for racers on the call seeking sponsorship.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd add, Al's right on target there, but I would also say go out and meet as many people as you can. Walk the pits, meet as many people as you can, because you might find that one person that's going to help you with what you're trying to accomplish. So meet as many people as you can. And for the marketers, I would just say, hey, listen, make sure if you set your KPIs, track your KPIs, and to make sure that you're returning that return on investment, delivering that return on investment, so you can keep those programs in place for many, many, many years, like Al and I have done with a lot of the same partnerships that we've been with.
Awesome. Well, like I've thanked everybody so far, for you two to take out time on a Saturday afternoon, I really appreciate it. I know it's 4 o'clock on the East Coast, so there's still a little bit time left of the day to have fun. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a quick 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back to the next session of sponsor speed dating, which is always really fun. One-on-one 15-minute sessions with several brands to hear from them, why they sponsor, what do they look for, and can you get sponsored by them? Come back in 15 minutes.